Chapter 43:16. 12 Regal Blood Essences, and one of them is a top-grade item for a half-step emperor. This cauldron of emperor pellets is indeed satisfying. There are a total of 5. Turning his head to look at the green ox, Yixian nodded. He paused halfway and changed the topic. What? Do you want one? Yes, how can I not want it? Hearing that this cauldron of emperor pellets had actually been refined into 5, the green ox was so excited that it snorted on the spot. Its 4 hooves impatiently pawed at the void as it nodded repeatedly in panic. This is the emperor pellet. As long as one's cultivation base reaches the 9th level of the emperor pellet, one will be able to reach the 9th level of the emperor pellet. After swallowing one will immediately become a ferocious beast emperor. How can this old ox just want it? I'm practically thirsty for it. Then what's your cultivation base now? Conferred King. Conferred King. Level 1. As Yixian casually asked another question, the green ox was so excited that it did not think much and subconsciously answered. Halfway through his sentence, the old fellow's eyes instantly widened as he stared straight at Yixian for a long time. In the end, he replied with a face full of suspicion. Boss, what do you mean by that? This old ox. Actually, it won't take long for me to reach the 9th level of the Conferred King realm. Then we'll talk about it when you arrive. Anyway, you just said that it won't take long. There's no rush. Yixian was secretly happy, but he did not show it on his face. He casually replied again, and then his figure flashed and he directly shot towards a giant star in the distance. Alright, summon all the beasts, don't let them go out casually. This king still has one more thing to do. Once it's done, we'll leave. Plop. Moo. Only at this moment did the green ox finally come back to its senses. It knew that it had been tricked by Yixian. Although the old fellow's skin was thick, it was too embarrassed to change its words on the spot. Not to mention that there was an elephant fox ferret beside him, who was staring at him with a strange expression. Under the depression in his heart, the old fellow's face instantly revealed a wisp of grief and indignation as if he'd lost his parents. He fell down on his butt in midair, and then he raised his head and let out a mooing sound. The hidden bitterness in his voice was simply to the point of tears, and it could be said to be monstrous resentment. Yixian didn't pay any attention to him. His figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he was already more than 100 million kilometers away, heading straight for a huge abandoned star not far ahead. This abandoned planet was the final position indicated by the interstellar coordinates that the Nine Heavens Maiden had given to Yixian. According to the Nine Heavens Maiden, this planet used to be full of life, but now it had lost its vitality. After all, countless years had passed since the primordial era. If it was a planet with life, Yixian would still hesitate. After all, even if there were more than 1,000 planets with life in the forbidden land of Bimeng, the important cultivation resources and various treasures within them had already been taken away by the green ox and the elephant fox ferret to more than 10 million forbidden lands. The ferocious beasts had all been collected, but planets with life were rather precious. There were still various living beings on them. If they were completely destroyed, it would more or less be a matter of peace. However, there was no need to worry so much about an abandoned planet that had long since lost its vitality. To put it bluntly, it was just a slightly larger stubborn rock. Boom! After a short while, Yixian arrived at the abandoned planet. He did not enter the planet. Instead, he stopped in the cosmic void a million kilometers away from the planet. After investigating for a while, he waved his arm and punched out brazenly. A shocking explosion sounded. The entire huge planet shattered into countless star fragments in the blink of an eye. A wisp of purplish-blue light quietly appeared among them, and Yixian immediately caught it with his sharp senses. Whoosh! With his eyelids twitching, Yixian's breathing instantly quickened. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately waved his hand. From the rumbling and shattering planet in front of him, a wisp of purplish-blue light immediately shot out and arrived 1,000 feet away from Yixian. Hovering. This was a blue mysterious jade essence crystal, about 10 feet in size and shaped like a cocoon. Inside it was sealed a woman. She was wearing a purple dress and even her hair was purple. Her eyes were tightly closed as if she was asleep. This purple-haired woman in a purple dress had a temperament like that of a fairy. Her appearance was noble and otherworldly, and she was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Unlike the other 6 women, although she had already fallen, she did not have the slightest breath of life. However, this precious body of his previous life that was sealed inside a complete profound jade essence crystal did not have a single scratch. Even the sparkling purple dress did not have a single wrinkle. What a powerful aura! Feeling the faint trace of energy within this mysterious jade essence crystal, Yixian could not help but be shocked. This kind of power had even surpassed the emperor level. If there were no accidents, it should be the emperor level. This was not just a mere pressure, but a real energy aura. In terms of pressure, Fairy Xixia's previous life was the same as the 6 women, including the 9 Heavens Maiden and the Celestial Phoenix Maiden. They were all existences of the primordial era. After falling, the precious body of her previous life could still capture the unique pressure of this primordial era life form. Sigh. But now what made Yixian surprised was not the residual pressure that represented the level of her previous life's cultivation, but the real power contained in this complete precious body. Previously, the 9 Heavens Maiden had said that after Fairy Xixia's soul was destroyed and she fell, the first thing she did was to consume her origin, seal her on the spot, and send her into the core of the star. If there are no accidents, once the origin of Xixia Fairy's spiritual sense in the Yanluo is based on her previous life's treasure body and reconstructs her real body in this life, then once she wakes up, her cultivation strength will at least reach the level of an emperor, and very close to the level of an emperor. Speaking of this, Yixian's eyes flashed, and his breathing became more rapid. Deep in his eyes an endless burning light bloomed. Now it seems that the energy aura of this precious body in front of me is so powerful. The mysterious maiden's speculation is extremely likely to become reality. Wang. Just as he spoke of this, the undying world in his body suddenly emitted a faint buzzing sound. Yixian's mind was blessed, and he subconsciously waved his hand. In an instant, a ray of light shot out, and in less than a breath of time, it had already expanded. In just a breath, it had turned into a pink silk cloth with a radius of 100 feet. It was the primordial era treasure Yanluo. Master, I am Xixia. Just as he took out the Bao Luo within the pink silk that stretched in the wind, there was a soft but firm voice that said, "Thank you, Master, for helping me find the treasure body of my previous life. With its help, Xixia will be able to open up immediately." Chapter 43:17. So it's the Emperor level? That's great. Yixian's eyes instantly lit up when he heard the voice of Xixia's spiritual sense from within Yu Yanluo. His breathing became even more hurried as he hurriedly asked, "Xixia, I wonder if your cultivation will be able to recover to Feng after you use this treasure body from your previous life to reconstruct your current life. Which Emperor level is it? Initial stage? Middle stage or late stage? There's a huge difference. The Peerless Emperor realm is absolutely guaranteed." Fairy Xixia's voice sounded again. "But I can't tell which Emperor level it is yet. I can only make a detailed estimate after I retrieve my previous life's treasure body." Yixian was anxious when he heard that. He urged, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and retrieve it." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a purple light shot out from the pink treasure net. In the blink of an eye, it went into the blue profound jade essence crystal in front of him. Almost in the next moment, the entire piece of mysterious crystal completely disintegrated, turning into streaks of purple and blue energy light. Like countless fireflies in the night sky, they shot out and entered the pink silk cloth in the blink of an eye, disappearing. Damn! Yixian didn't urge her. He waited quietly. After a few breaths, Xixia Fairy's voice finally sounded from within the pink silk. "Master, the precious body of the previous life is relatively well preserved. And because Sister Xiannu used the original source to form this blue mysterious jade essence crystal, it helped Xixia preserve the body of the previous life. Even after countless years, the remaining energy is still very strong. Therefore, according to my estimation of the energy in the treasure body, I'll have the power of the 7th stage Emperor level after I reconstruct the treasure body and awaken it." 7th stage? Not bad. That's the late stage Emperor level, only 2 stages away from the peak. Yixian's eyes instantly lit up as he excitedly rubbed his hands. Halfway through his words, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something. His words suddenly paused, and he suddenly waved his hand, shooting a ray of light towards the pink silk net in front of him. This ray of light contained a large amount of top-grade cultivation resources. There were 10 drops of all evil origin elixir alone, as well as plenty of other top-grade precious herbs such as purple gold top-grade flesh medicines. Hey, these are all for you. They can help you improve your cultivation when you reconstruct your true body in this world. Yi Xian spoke again after the light entered the pink silk. His voice was filled with excitement and anticipation. Reconstructing your true body is equivalent to a great opportunity. With the help of these top-notch resources, once you wake up, your cultivation will definitely improve. He will definitely become even more powerful. There are actually 10 drops of evil origin elixir. Xixia's pleasantly surprised voice immediately rang out from the pink silk. Thank you, Master. Reconstructing my present body is indeed a great opportunity for me to strengthen my foundation. With the help of these top-tier resources, if there are no accidents, Xixia should be able to recover to the peak of the Emperor level 9 when she wakes up. In other words, the half-Emperor level. What? Half-Emperor? Yi Xian's eyes immediately widened as he sucked in a cold breath of air. He exclaimed in shock. Just these 10 drops of evil origin liquid can actually allow you to instantly increase your cultivation by 2 small levels after reconstructing your true body? Why didn't you say so earlier? This liquid is extremely precious, but I still have a few hundred drops. 10 drops are enough. Without waiting for him to finish, Xixia's voice sounded again. No matter how much you give me, Xixia's power can only be restored to the quasi-emperor level. It's impossible for me to directly jump to the emperor level. The reason is very difficult to explain. The emperor level is a very strange level. When Master breaks through to this level in the future, you'll naturally understand what Xixia means. Now, it's very difficult to use words to explain the subtleties of this. There's such a thing? Frowning, Yi Xian secretly kept this matter in mind and did not dwell on it. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, If that's the case, you can go into seclusion and reconstruct your true body. Try to complete all of this as soon as possible and wake up. Master Xixia has left. See you in the future. In the pink treasure net, Xixia's last sentence was immediately followed by silence. Although this girl's temperament was gentle, she was obviously a little soft on the outside but tough on the inside. Her actions were swift and decisive, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. I wonder how long it will take for this girl to reconstruct her true body in this life to wake up. Yi Xian muttered softly as he stared blankly at the Yenluo stretching in the wind 300 meters away. For a moment he was actually a little absent-minded. However, in his eyes, there was a gleam of extreme anticipation. The great circle of the 9th level Emperor level, which was half a step to the Emperor level, was definitely an extremely powerful existence. He dared not say that he could run rampant in this mysterious void fragment of the primitive world, but it was basically impossible to meet an opponent who could match him. At least, in the 2 places Yi Xian knew that had Emperor-level battle prowess, which was the Rising Sun Forbidden Land and the Crouching Bull Star region, there was absolutely no such power. I wonder when I will be able to step into the Emperor level. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's face couldn't help but reveal a strong sense of longing. There were a total of 5 levels of Undying. Ordinary Undying, Official Undying, Emperor Undying, and Emperor Undying. When Yi Xian first became an Ordinary Undying, it seemed like it was only yesterday, but now, in the blink of an eye, he had unknowingly become an Ordinary Undying. In the blink of an eye, he had already grown to the 4th level of the Emperor level, which was the intermediate level. This kind of speed of advancement might not be unprecedented, but it was probably close. However, it was still far from enough. Intermediate Emperor level was only 2 levels away from the Emperor level. Not to mention, after the Emperor level, there were still Universe Knights, Universe Masters, Universe Supreme, and Primordial Great Beings. Primordial Great Beings, and other 5 levels. In the future, once the primitive world fully descended, the primeval heavens, I would have a large number of primordial great beings who were hiding or recovering from their injuries under his command. With Yi Xian's current strength, if he wanted to step into the primordial great being level, there would be 7 levels of primordial great beings. There was a total of 7 levels to break through. Every great realm had 9 small stages. Based on this calculation, if he wanted to enter the primordial sovereign realm, He would need to break through at least 60 times. 60 times. This was not the early stage but the late stage of the Starry Sky realm. Even a small breakthrough would take a long time. 60 times. Just thinking about it now made Yixian give birth to one in an instant. A heavy feeling of helplessness. It seems like the pressure on my shoulders is still huge. 60 breakthroughs. It's simply despairing. Chapter 43:18. Moo. Just as he returned to the previous area, he bumped into the green ox, which was rushing over with its 4 hooves. This old fellow was still lifeless not long ago, but in the blink of an eye, it was as if it had been revived with full health, and nothing happened to it. This made Yixian speechless. Boss, all the beasts in the Forbidden Grounds have been gathered. Should we return to the base immediately? When he reached Yixian, the green ox stopped abruptly. Without waiting for Yixian to speak, he impatiently urged, "Boss, are you done with your business? If there's nothing else, let's return to the base immediately. We've been out for so long. I really want to go back." "What's the situation?" Yixian frowned and turned to look at the elephant fox ferret. Then, he glanced at the 10 million beasts neatly arranged in a square formation in the void not far behind. He suddenly had a strange feeling. This old man was really strange. Before they came out of Phoenix Bloodstarfield, he was the one who kept saying that he wanted to come out. Now that they had just taken down the beaming Forbidden Grounds, he impatiently urged Yixian to go back. The elephant fox ferret was also confused. He stared at Yixian in a daze. "Actually, it's nothing much. Boss, this old cow just wants to go into closed-door cultivation." As soon as Yixian finished speaking, the green ox took over his words, showing an impatient attitude. "Look, boss, back then, this old cow broke through to the titled king realm with you. Although not much time has passed yet, but boss, not long ago you're already Emperor Realm level 4, but I'm still at Emperor Realm level 1. This is simply intolerable." Speaking of this, the green ox shook his head and snorted. His expression was firm. "Luckily, I had an epiphany. It's not too late to work hard now. That's why I'm urging you to go back quickly." "Old cow, I've already made up my mind. This time, if I don't break through to the 9th level of Conferred King stage, I won't go out anymore. My youth is wasted like this. I can't bear to think about it." Yixian instantly came to a realization when he heard the words "great perfection of the 9th stage" come out of his mouth. He immediately rolled his eyes. After all this time, this old man was still thinking about the level 23 pill that could help him break through to Emperor level Undying. Now that he had made such a fuss, he was truly a troublemaker. "Alright, this king can see it now. If I don't give you this level 23 pill, I don't know what other things will happen during this period of time." Shaking his head and smiling bitterly, Yixian suddenly waved his hand and a light beam shot towards the green ox. It was one of the 5 level 23 pills. Of course, it wasn't the one with the best quality. Emperor Realm Treasure Pill? Seeing this light shoot out, the green bull's eyes widened in an instant. It snorted and exclaimed. At the same time, its body suddenly leaped up. Like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, it directly hugged the flying emerald green jade bottle in its arms. He vigilantly scanned his surroundings before carefully putting it back into his body. Seeing this, Yixian was completely speechless. As for the elephant fox mink, he was so excited that his face flushed red as he stared at Yixian. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation was only at the conferred Marquis realm, he probably would have blurted out and asked Yixian for a level 23 pill. Emperor Realm Treasure Pill. Alright, don't even think about the Emperor Realm Treasure Pill. However, I can't be biased. Fine. I'll give you the Emperor Realm Treasure Pill first. Train hard and break through to the 9th level peak as soon as possible. Then you'll be able to consume it. Yixian turned his head to look at the elephant fox ferret. After he finished speaking, he directly raised his hand and shot out a jade bottle. Inside was a level 22 Regal King pellet. Boss is so mighty. Even though it was only an Emperor Realm Treasure Pill, the leopard was no less excited than the green ox. He immediately kept it in his body after receiving it. Shoo! With a wave of his hand, Yixian directly took out the Shinong cauldron. This time he didn't intentionally control the size of the cauldron. At this moment it was like a giant star, instantly attracting the gazes of the green ox and the elephant fox mink. As for the more than 10 million ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Grounds that had just been subdued not long ago, without exception, they were all shocked. Even the 10 marquee immortal ranked beasts gasped after being stunned for a moment. This was a primordial treasure of an era. They had only heard about it before. Who would have thought that they would be able to see it with their own eyes under such circumstances? All the beasts in the Forbidden Grounds enter the treasured cauldron's inner space and cultivate in peace. When you are needed in battle, you will naturally be summoned. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he turned to look at the great beast army in the distant void. He continued, "This king doesn't care about those below the universe realm. But as long as they reach the great perfection of the universe realm, they can immediately apply for a treasure pill from this king. You can break through to the immortal grade within a few days. Similarly, it is the same for the 9th level immortal grade, 9th level marquee grade, and 9th level monarch grade. I have corresponding treasured pills with me. As long as you reach the 9th level peak of the universe grade, you can break through within a few days after consuming them. However, these treasured pills are not free. They will be deducted from your accumulated battle merits in the future." After saying that, Yi Xian did not say anything else. With a wave of his hand, the dense 9-colored fog at the mouth of the farmer god cauldron dispersed instantly, forming a passage in the distant void. The 10 million plus beasts in the Forbidden Grounds in formation were so excited that their bodies trembled after hearing Yi Xian's words. They originally thought that this time's surrender represented the incomparably dark days of enslavement in the future. They didn't expect that the truth was the complete opposite. This was clearly a good fortune. The so-called battle achievements could actually be exchanged for this kind of breakthrough in a few days. A supreme treasure pill that could break through the universe-grade bottleneck was simply unimaginable in the past. With excitement, all the beasts in the Forbidden Grounds did not resist or hesitate. Under the leadership of the 10 marquee immortal grade beasts, they all turned into streaks of light and shot toward the star-like mouth of the farmer god cauldron. In just half an hour, the 10 million plus beasts in the Forbidden Grounds had all entered the farmer god cauldron. The void in front of them was empty. Only now did Yi Xian turn his head to look at the elephant fox mink and the green ox. His eyes flashed as he said, "As for the matter of returning to the Forbidden Phoenix Blood Grounds, we'll temporarily postpone it. This king's intention is to first make a trip to the Rising Sun Forbidden Grounds." Chapter 43:19. We're only going to the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun to gather some information. There's basically no danger. Yi Xian waved his hand and interrupted the green ox. "We won't be going back to the Forbidden Land of Phoenix Blood for the time being. After we're done with the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, we still have to go to another large remnant star field. Didn't I already give you the Emperor Pill? Why are you still clamoring for it? What the hell do you mean by going back?" When the green ox heard this, an aggrieved and gloomy expression immediately appeared on its face. It muttered, "The treasure pill was given to me, but I can't use it now. I have the treasure pill in my hand, but I can't swallow it. This kind of feeling is like 100 claws scratching my heart. It's worse than not having the treasure pill in hand. It's even worse when I have it." What it said made sense. Yi Xian opened his mouth and was speechless for a moment. If you want to go into seclusion, you should go in too. The spiritual energy in the farmer god cauldron is more abundant. In the end, he pointed at the farmer god cauldron beside him speechlessly. As soon as he finished speaking, the green ox raised its head and mooed. It directly charged into the mouth of the cauldron filled with 9-colored fog and disappeared. "Boss, my cultivation is weaker. I need to go into seclusion even more." The elephant fox ferret had just obtained a level 22 Emperor Pill. Seeing that Yi Xian specially allowed the green ox to enter the farmer god cauldron and enter seclusion for a long time, it was immediately tempted. It stared at Yi Xian seriously and said, "Also, I think what Great King Ox said makes sense. I have the pill in my hands, but I can't use it. This is even more torturous than not having the pill. How is it just scratching my heart? It's simply scratching my heart. Don't even think about it." Hearing that this old guy also wanted to slack off, Yi Xian immediately rolled his eyes and refused on the spot. "Don't forget that you still have to help me find the bloodline evolution resources of the other 3 Warikayans. As long as you do this, I'll give you a promise. This Star Lord can guarantee that in the future, as long as you break through to the conferred Emperor realm, You will be able to obtain a level 23 conferred Emperor pill. As for the others, they'll have to wait until they reach the peak of the Emperor realm. The green ox is just an exception. Let's do it. Hearing that he could still enjoy this kind of treatment, the elephantine's eyes instantly lit up. Without hesitation, he nodded and agreed on the spot. He patted his chest and said, "Boss, don't worry. I will definitely use all my strength to activate my bloodline talent and help you as soon as possible. The bloodline evolution resources required by the 3 Karakoram clans have been found. If that's the case, let's be on our way." "Xiao," Yixian nodded. With a wave of his hand, he stored the Shenong cauldron into his body. At this moment, the elephantine had already shrunk its figure once more, and it was only around 3 centimeters in size. It was like a pet as it descended onto the right shoulder of the violent Starsky ape that was 30 m tall, and it just happened to sink its entire body into it, causing it to feel extremely comfortable and content. This was something that couldn't be helped. If he had to follow behind them with his speed as a titled marquis, Yixian would probably go crazy on the spot. Then, Yixian turned around and glanced at the behemoth Forbidden Land behind him. He shook his head and sighed. Then, with a shake of his shoulders, he shot into the distance. Yixian was already well aware of the coordinates of the forbidden area of the rising sun. However, it was too far away from the behemoth Forbidden Land. It was more than 100 billion miles away. Yixian's current cultivation base was already at 4th stage Emperor Immortal. Now, he was activating the demonic ape bloodline in his body and transforming into the violent Starsky ape. In this form, his cultivation base was at 5th stage Emperor Immortal. Even if he used his extreme speed and teleported from time to time, it would take him at least 2 months to cross this distance of 100 billion miles. Of course, Huang Xiaolong could also activate the 9 Devil Ape Transformations bloodline ability and execute the 6th Devil Ape Transformation. In that case, his cultivation would reach the 2nd Order Emperor realm, and his speed would increase by several folds. At most, he could reach the Rising Sun Forbidden Land in 20 days. But in this way, he would miss most of the things along the way. This time, he went to the Rising Sun Forbidden Land with a strong purpose, which was to inquire about the whereabouts of the Netherworld Furnace. However, there was another purpose, which was to bring the elephantine fox to find the bloodline evolution centers of the other 3 Karakoram clans in the void. The cultivation resources they needed. Previously, the mystic jade marrow crystal that the entire soldier ladle clan needed in the void was found because of the elephantine fox. Although the devouring system in Yixian's body also gave a system notification, that was when the elephantine fox told him about his discovery. After that, just based on this point, it could be seen how powerful this old guy's 1/3 treasure-seeking mouse bloodline was in terms of searching for treasures and resources. If it were not for the fact that Yixian did not have any suitable resources in his hands, he would have done everything he could to help the elephantine fox improve the 1/3 treasure-seeking mouse bloodline in his body. Even if it was only half, it was still half. He believed that this old guy's talent in searching for treasures would greatly increase because of this. However, even if it was only 1/3 of the treasure-seeking mouse bloodline now, Yixian's elephantine fox was very confident. Previously, he found the mystic jade marrow crystal easily, which was enough to explain everything. Although the journey to the forbidden land of Rising Sun was long, hundreds of billions of miles, but from another perspective, it was also a chance to find the cultivation resources needed for the bloodline evolution of the other 3 warring clans. Therefore, Yixian was really unwilling to take a look at the flowers on horseback. With his powerful 2nd Order Emperor cultivation base, he flew at top speed. If there really were resources needed by the 3 clans along the way, but he accidentally brushed past them, that would be too regretful. Swish! With a piercing sound, a ray of light shot out from the void, traveling millions of miles in the blink of an eye. This ray of light was Yixian, who was rushing towards the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. Now 10 days had passed since he left the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. The distance of 20 billion miles was behind him, and he had already covered 5 minutes of the long star road to the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. One of them. In these 10 days, although Yixian had been rushing at top speed, the elephantine fox lying on his right shoulder seemed to be comfortable, but in fact it was not idle. Along the way, This old guy had been fully activating the treasure-seeking mouse bloodline in its body. He sensed the auras of the stars along the way and relied on them to determine if there were any cultivation resources that Yixian needed. Even with his first-order marquee cultivation base, activating his bloodline talent for 10 whole days was an extremely tiring thing. The consumption of blood and qi was too great. Fortunately, Yixian had all kinds of top-grade treasures and medicines in his hands. Every time the elephantine fox was weak and tired, he would immediately throw a pile of them over. What made people speechless was that after swallowing a large amount of top-grade treasures and medicines, the elephantine fox's cultivation base had unknowingly broken through 2 days ago. Now it was already a second-order marquee. Boss, about 1,000,000 miles to the right, there is a star with a very strange aura. Chapter 43:20. Red Marrow Spirit Crystal? Massive amount? Yixian fell into a daze as the familiar system notification rang out in his mind. Then, a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. Without any hesitation, he immediately extracted all the information related to the Red Marrow Spirit Crystal from the database of the Devouring system in his body. He quickly browsed through it. He had never heard of this resource before, but since the Devouring system had mentioned its name, it meant that it had automatically identified this newly discovered resource. As such, the system's information database must have been updated. All the relevant information could be found in the system. Of course, the discovery of the Red Marrow Spirit Crystal this time was still thanks to the elephantine ferret. The system notification that had appeared in Yixian's mind the last time the profound jade essence crystal had been discovered was also after the elephantine ferret had made a discovery and notified him. It was the same this time. This was definitely not a coincidence. Previously, the system would only issue a notification when Yixian had personally come into contact with or discovered a new resource. But now, it seemed that the elephantine ferret was Yixian's nose, so the system had obviously assumed that his discovery was related to Yixian's own discovery. It had the same effect. After checking, Yixian's heart began to pound wildly. The Red Marrow Spirit Crystal was a type of crystal that was as red as blood. The key ingredient for its formation was soul blood. Furthermore, it had to go through a very long period of time before the soul blood that had seeped into the soil could gradually become a red marrow spirit crystal under the terrifying pressure of the planet's core. Blood-colored spirit crystal. It was obvious that the abandoned planet in front of them that contained a large amount of red marrow spirit crystals must have gone through a terrible battle countless years ago. Furthermore, the creatures that had participated in that battle, or rather the entire race of some kind of starry sky species, must have used some kind of secret technique in the end to force out the soul blood of all their members. In the end, this unknown race that had staked everything on a single throw must have been annihilated. As for whether their enemies had been killed by this method, there was no way to verify. However, one thing was certain, and that was that the soul blood forced out by all the members of that unknown race had seeped into the planet's land after the war. After soaking the soil, this planet's core must have undergone an intense tectonic movement. The large amount of mud that had been dyed red by the soul blood was brought into the core of the planet. After countless years, under the terrifying pressure of the planet's core, the mud was turned into a large amount of red marrow soul crystals, which became the precious minerals of this abandoned planet. The reason it was so valuable wasn't just because it was extremely useful for the Weeping Soul Warcaras, the Weeping Soul Beasts race, to rapidly improve their bloodline. Another reason was that this red marrow soul crystal was effective for most races in the universe. It could enhance the soul energy of most races, which was comparable to tempering one's soul. In fact, these soul crystals could even be used in pill recipes to improve the quality of the pills that were concocted. Good stuff, and its storage is said to be vast. This time we've made a huge profit. Muttering to himself, Yixian's eyes shone brightly. Without hesitation, his figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he was outside the atmosphere of this abandoned planet. This planet was very large, but it had been abandoned for countless years. There wasn't the slightest bit of vitality. Even the atmosphere was only a thin layer. Standing in the void of the universe outside the atmosphere, Yixian immediately extended his soul consciousness into the interior of the planet. After an extremely detailed search, he discovered that there was indeed a large amount of blood in the planet's core. A large number of blood-colored crystals appeared. If he wasn't mistaken, These blood-colored crystals should be the so-called red marrow soul crystals. After confirming that there was no mistake, Yi Xian relaxed and secretly rejoiced. This time it was fortunate that he brought along the elephant fox mink, and was lucky enough to discover this batch of red marrow soul crystals. Otherwise, if Yi Xian was the only one who passed by this place, he probably wouldn't have had a chance at all. There were too many planets in the void. It was impossible for him to extend his soul consciousness to investigate each one so carefully. Only the 1/3 of the treasure-seeking mouse bloodline in the elephantine's body could keenly capture the faint aura emitted by the core of this planet from millions of kilometers away at such a high speed. When Yi Xian had mined the origin of planet cores in the graveyard of the third universe, the situation was the same as that of the elephant fox marten. It was almost like cheating. But at that time, Yi Xian could do this because he had seized the bloodline of a young devourer beast. Although devourers were naturally very sensitive to the origin of planet cores, they could only rely on this one resource. When encountering other resources stored in the origin of planet cores, such as the red marrow soul crystals this time, Yi Xian's bloodline of the devourer beast would not sense them at all. But the elephant fox marten was different. As long as it was a valuable treasure or cultivation resource, it would be sensitive to it. This alone showed how powerful the bloodline of the treasure-hunting mouse was. Whoosh! Boom! Rumble! After confirming the location of the mine, Yi Xian didn't hesitate in the slightest. With a wave of his hand, an invisible and boundless force blasted out. In an instant, the abandoned star in front of him was blasted into a pile of shattered star fragments. An enormous explosion rang out. The explosion was so loud that it could be heard from thousands of miles away. With his current 5th-level king cultivation base, it was extremely easy for him to destroy a planet with a wave of his hand. At this moment, as the abandoned planet exploded, a smear of crimson appeared in the large amount of broken pieces. It was like a huge mountain peak, filled with crystals of various sizes. They were crimson like blood, and there seemed to be some kind of energy flowing within them. It was like flowing water, giving people an extremely dreamy feeling. Yi Xian waved his hand, and all the red crystals in the void flew over and floated in front of him. After a quick measurement, the total amount was as many as a few million cubic meters. The amount of mineral deposits was simply shocking. Whoosh! With another wave of his hand, the Weeping Soul Battle Talisman that was originally stored in the Undying World within his body was activated by Yi Xian. Immediately after, with a thought from him, the tens of millions of Weeping Soul beasts within the Battle Talisman node swarmed out like bees that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. They let out a sharp cry as they charged towards the mountain-like red marrow blood crystal in front of them. At this moment, the familiar system notification sounded in Yi Xian's mind again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for discovering purple blood spirit marrow. Quantity: 1,000 cubic meters. Do you want to collect it immediately? Purple blood spirit marrow? Yi Xian was stunned for a moment. He subconsciously looked towards the mountain-like sea of red marrow blood crystals in front of him. Sure enough, he saw a thick purple light within the largest red marrow blood crystal. Chapter 43:21. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and purple light burst forth. In the blink of an eye, a patch of purple crystals appeared in the space in front of Yi Xian. They were of various sizes, and they looked extremely beautiful. There seemed to be a hint of purple in each of them. Precious blood was flowing. As for the total number, it was exactly 1,000 cubic meters, which was not much different from what the system had indicated. Subconsciously, Yi Xian once again pulled out the information related to the purple blood spirit marrow from the system's database. After quickly browsing through it, he finally understood. Previously, when Yi Xian found the mystic jade essence crystals with the help of the elephant fox ferret, he had also obtained about 1,000 cubic meters of purple jade essence crystals from the sea of mystic jade essence crystals. Purple jade essence crystals were actually higher grade and purer mystic jade essence crystals. It was also because of this that the 1,000 cubic meters of purple jade essence crystals were stored in the Undying World within Yi Xian's body. He did not hand them over to the soldier Jiao tribe in the Void Battle Tower. This time, the 1,000 cubic meters of purple blood spirit marrow that he found in the red marrow spirit marrow was actually the same. The purple blood spirit marrow was also a higher grade and purer red marrow spirit crystal. Ordinary red marrow soul crystals already had all kinds of extraordinary uses. Purple blood soul marrow, which was purer than red marrow soul crystals, obviously had more uses and better effects. Without any hesitation, Yixian immediately stored the 1,000 cubic meters of purple blood spirit marrow and stored it in the undying world within his body, just like the purple jade essence crystals before. Even the hundreds of cubic meters of ordinary red marrow spirit crystals in front of him were taken away by Yixian. He planned to add them as supplementary resources when he refined the great flesh medicine and various grade of treasure pills in the future. In the blink of an eye, there were only a little over 2 million cubes of blood-colored soul essence left in the cosmic void up ahead. However, for the weeping soul beasts, which only numbered in the tens of millions, it was still enough to be divided among them. Each weeping soul beast was given a large amount of soul essence, so it was more than enough. It would allow the bloodline of the entire tribe to evolve to a higher level. Buzz! A low buzzing sound rang out continuously, and in the short time it took to brew a cup of tea, over 2 million cubic meters of red marrow soul crystals had been divided up by the tens of millions of weeping soul beasts. With these red marrow soul crystals, Yixian didn't dare to hope that the bloodlines in their bodies would evolve to the same level as the weeping soul blood ape, because that was simply impossible. The weeping soul blood ape was the same as the corpse ancestor, drought demon fairy Zixia, and the other 7 women. The desolate antiquity era. Even if he were to pour all of these red marrow soul crystals into a single weeping soul beast, he would not be able to raise its bloodline to such a level. However, as long as their bloodline power and cultivation strength could all reach the domain lord realm, it would be enough for Yixian. These were tens of millions of domain lords, and they all had unique bloodline talents. Coupled with the amplification effect of the weeping soul war talisman, once activated, even a titled emperor would have to be wary. With this kind of anticipation, Yixian ordered all of the weeping soul beasts to return to the weeping soul war talisman. Then with a wave of his hand, he stored the war talisman back into his undying world. This time, on his way to the rising sun forbidden land, he had only stopped in this star region for about an hour, but he had already obtained a huge amount of red marrow soul crystals and even 1,000 cubic meters of the higher grade purple blood essence. It was a great harvest. And all of this was thanks to the elephant fox ferret. Yixian now found this old fellow extremely pleasing to the eye. This time, I will record this great merit for you. Turning to look at the elephant fox ferret, Yixian nodded and continued. The 4 great war talisman races need 4 types of cultivation resources to improve their bloodlines, and we have already solved 2 of them. They were all found in the boundless void of the universe. This shows that there is a problem. And that is that in this ancient fragment of the void from the ancient times, there are all kinds of rare and precious resources. As long as you have the heart, you will definitely find something. At this point, Yixian suddenly changed the topic and turned to look at the void leading to the rising sun forbidden land, his eyes shining brightly. We have only traveled 1/5 of the way to the rising sun forbidden land, and there is still a long way to go. I wonder if we can still find something? Yes, boss, it might be because I recently broke through to the marquis rank, and the 1/3 of the treasure-seeking rat bloodline power in my body has increased greatly. It is like luck has arrived. Continuing Yixian's words, the elephant fox ferret rubbed its small paws and laughed mischievously. This old ferret has a feeling that we will definitely find something else on this trip to the rising sun forbidden land, and it should be more than one. Although what I said is baseless, the bloodline of the treasure-seeking mouse is so amazing. Everything about treasure seems to be affected by some kind of power. Maybe my intuition is right, Li Yao said. Then he shook his head. Then I'll count on your auspicious words. Yixian had seen the magic of the treasure-seeking rat's bloodline twice in a row, so he naturally believed in it without a doubt. Therefore, although the elephant fox ferret's words were baseless and too vague, in Yixian's opinion, they were not necessarily without a certain degree of credibility. Nodding, Yixian waved his hand and pressed the elephant fox ferret back to his right shoulder socket. Without hesitation, his figure flashed and he continued on his way, turning into a faint light and disappearing at the end of the void thousands of miles away in the blink of an eye. The long interstellar journey in the void had always been boring. The reason why Yixian and the elephant fox ferret did not feel this sense of boredom along the way was that they had always had strong expectations in their hearts. They hoped that in the next moment, they would be lucky enough to find something on a certain planet not far ahead. Some kind of precious treasure. Even if it was not the cultivation resources needed for the bloodline evolution of the other two great war clans, at least it was better than nothing. After all, the treasures and resources that could make the 1/3 of the treasure-seeking rat bloodline in the elephant fox ferret give birth to a vague feeling were not far off. Where would they go? But this time, after they set off again, the two of them sped through the void for another 20 days. Unknowingly, they had already covered half of the last 4/5 of the long journey. However, during this period, the elephant fox ferret did not find anything. He did not make a sound. It was as if his so-called good luck had been completely used up in the previous 2 times. After 20 days, even Yixian was a little impatient. A faint sense of anxiety flashed through his heart from time to time. Although it dissipated quickly, it was not a good feeling after all. Fortunately, on the afternoon of the last 20 days, the elephant fox ferret's voice suddenly sounded again in his right shoulder socket. "Boss, more than 1,000,000 miles ahead to the left, there's another planet with a very strange aura. We seem to have hit the jackpot again." Chapter 43:22. Charcoal Maggot Blood Marrow? Why did the name of this resource sound so disgusting? As this thought flashed through his mind, Yixian subconsciously frowned. Immediately after, he directly pulled up all the resources related to the charcoal maggot blood marrow from the information database of the devouring system in his body. After browsing for a while, Yixian suddenly understood. This so-called charcoal maggot blood marrow was different from the profound jade marrow crystal and the red marrow soul crystal. It was not a crystal-like cultivation resource. It was not even a dead object but a living thing. It also had another name, blood marrow charcoal maggot. To put it bluntly, this was actually a kind of space bug. Each one was only about 1 foot long and 2 inches thick. Because there was a bloodline in the center of the bug's core marrow, and its entire body was as black as ink charcoal. Its appearance was very similar to maggots, so the name blood marrow charcoal maggot came from it. And it came from the relevant resources provided by the system information database. This kind of bug was very rare. It was basically impossible to see it in the void of the universe because they fed on the core essence of the stars, which was also the source of the star core. If a star was compared to an apple, then these blood marrow charcoal maggots were the worms hidden in the core of the fruit. After the blood marrow charcoal maggots ate up all the core essence of a star, they would immediately leave and go to the next star. After entering the core, they would immediately lay eggs and then die, completing a cycle of life. In the vast void of the universe, the reason why so many living stars quickly went from being full of life to being dead and abandoned was because of the evolution of the stars themselves, but a part of it was also because of the evolution of the stars themselves. The reason was that the origin crystal of the star core inside the core was completely devoured by the blood marrow charcoal maggots. This kind of devouring accelerated the dissipation of the star's vitality and the process of walking towards death. And this kind of magical bug race in the universe, only when a bright red bloodline appeared in its body could its bloodline be considered to have evolved to a pure state. Only this kind of pure blood marrow charcoal maggot could produce a jaw-dropping effect on the evolution of the blood mosquito beast's bloodline. Magical effect? I didn't expect that there would be such a magical bug in the universe. It was so extravagant that it ate the origin of the star core and evolved its bloodline generation after generation. It didn't know how many stars' origin crystals it had devoured, but after countless cycles of reproduction, it finally became a pure bloodline. Blood marrow charcoal maggots. After browsing through all the information, Yixian sighed with emotion. Without hesitation, he moved to the abandoned planet in front of him, which had been locked by the system. Although this planet had long since lost all life, its size was still very large. It was considered a super-large planet, and Yixian could still capture a very weak life force from the inside of the planet. From this, it could be seen that this abandoned planet had exhausted its vitality not long ago and was on the verge of death. The reason why the exuberant vitality that it originally possessed was completely exhausted in such a short period of time was most likely due to the massive amount of blood marrow charcoal maggots that were still hibernating in the core of the planet. The blood marrow charcoal maggots had just eaten up all the origin cores in the core area of the enormous planet not long ago. Before they could leave and migrate to the core areas of other planets to lay their eggs, they were killed by the elephant fox at the most critical moment. The mink caught their scent. Since they are living things, I have to be prepared to hunt them. After muttering softly, Yixian suddenly waved his hand. A ray of light shot out and hung in the void not far away. It was the blood mosquito war talon of the 4 great war talons. Wang with a thought, all the nodes of the war chariot opened, and the blood mosquito beasts rushed out of the beehive nodes and lined up in the void. They were the blood mosquito beasts, and there were tens of millions of them. Among them, the leader was Yixian's sworn brother, Shui Ben. Shui Ben's cultivation had now grown to the universe grade, and was only a few small ranks away from the immortal grade. This was the result of Yixian continuously pouring in all kinds of top-notch cultivation resources. However, what made him feel regretful was that although Shui Ben's cultivation had been continuously rising and breaking through, his consciousness had never fully recovered. He was much better than when he had first met Yixian. Boom! The tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts were all mobilized. Under Yixian's instructions, they surrounded the entire abandoned planet. The latter did not hesitate. With a wave of his hand, an invisible majestic force blasted out and directly smashed the entire huge planet with a punch. A large number of fragments of the planet splattered and dust rose in the void. At the same time, a large number of black rays of light darted out from the core of the planet. They were about a foot long and looked like maggots. However, there was a very clear bloodline in their bodies. They were the so-called blood marrow charcoal maggots. Although he had already known from the system that the abandoned planet contained a large number of blood marrow charcoal maggots, Yixian was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. A large number of these blood marrow charcoal maggots were scattered in the void. A conservative estimate was that there were at least hundreds of billions of them. In other words, there were tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts. On average, each blood mosquito beast would need to hunt at least 10,000 blood marrow charcoal maggots to consume all the charcoal maggots. Very soon Yixian made a new discovery. Among this large swarm of blood marrow charcoal maggots, there were occasional flashes of purple light. There weren't many of them, but in the midst of this blood black, this kind of dense purple light, even though it was extremely faint, was very conspicuous. Yixian was excited. Just as he was about to make a move, a familiar system notification sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have discovered purple marrow charcoal maggots. Number more than 1,000. Do you want to collect them immediately? Purple marrow charcoal maggots? Thinking about this name, Yixian immediately understood. Obviously, this was a type of blood marrow charcoal maggots that had evolved to a higher level and purer bloodline. As the bloodline in their bodies had turned a deep purple color, they were called purple marrow charcoal maggots. Blood marrow charcoal maggots. Instinctively, Yixian immediately searched for information related to these purple marrow charcoal maggots from the information database of the Devouring system in his body. After some investigation, Yixian's eyes lit up. The effects of these purple marrow charcoal maggots were more extensive than ordinary blood marrow charcoal maggots. Not only did they have a better effect on the bloodline evolution of the blood mosquito beasts, but they could also be used as medicine like the purple blood spirit marrow. They could greatly increase the effect of the pills. This was to be expected. After all, it belonged to a rare species of space zerg. Generally speaking, the secretions of the space zerg in the universe would have various unique medicinal effects. However, this purple marrow charcoal maggot was one of a kind. Chapter 43:23. Xiao! Xiao xiao xiao! In the void, the faint sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Following Yixian's thought, streaks of black and purple light shot out from the explosion of the star in front of him. When they arrived in front of him, they suddenly stopped. Shockingly, they were purple marrow charcoal maggots. These purple marrow charcoal maggots were also about a foot long and were completely black. The only difference between them and the blood marrow charcoal maggots was that the blood vein in their bodies had turned a dark purple color. This was where their name came from. In less than 3 breaths, all of the purple marrow charcoal maggots were locked onto by Yixian and collected in front of him. There was a total of 1,169 purple marrow charcoal maggots. After muttering to himself for a while, Yixian waved his hand and took out a small spatial bottle. He kept the 1,000 purple marrow charcoal maggots in it. This small spatial bottle was carved out of 100 million years mysterious ice. After all of the purple marrow charcoal maggots were sent into it, they would be frozen. The purple marrow charcoal maggots would not lose any of their medicinal effects. Shio! With a wave of his hand, this small spatial bottle containing 1,000 purple marrow charcoal maggots was kept into Yi Xian's undying world. As for the remaining 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots, he did not deal with them for the time being. They were suspended in the void around him, but they were bound by a force of energy. Being bound by the power of form, he was unable to move at all, let alone escape. These 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots were specially left by Yi Xian for his sworn brother, Shui Ben. Compared to the normal blood marrow charcoal maggots, these purple marrow charcoal maggots had a purer bloodline, and would be more effective for the bloodline evolution of the blood mosquito beasts. Because there were too few of them, Yi Xian still needed to add most of them in the future to refine a treasure pill. Therefore, the other blood mosquito beasts could not enjoy such treatment. However, Shui Ben was different. He was Yi Xian's sworn brother, and enjoying nearly 200 purple marrow charcoal maggots was also Yi Xian's goodwill. He believed that it would definitely be able to increase his cultivation by a large amount, and the evolution of his bloodline would be even higher. Li. Ruthless, ruthless, ruthless. Just as Yi Xian waved his hand and took out a space bottle to collect the 1,000 purple marrow charcoal maggots, a large number of violent howls came from the cosmic void in front of them, one after another, densely packed and endless. At the behest of Yi Xian, the blood mosquito beasts that had surrounded the entire exploded star finally began their hunt. Tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts swarmed forward, and in an instant, the void in front of them surged like an ocean of insects. A large number of blood marrow charcoal maggots screeched as they tried to flee in all directions. However, although there were many of them, they outnumbered the blood mosquito beasts by more than 10,000 times. However, the blood mosquito beasts happened to be the natural enemy of these insects. Facing the overwhelming number of blood mosquito beasts, all the blood marrow charcoal maggots trembled. They could only use 20% to 30% of their original strength, even in the void. Even if they were to use all their strength, their speed would still be infuriatingly slow. Without a doubt, there was no way to escape, and they were destined to die in the stomachs of the blood mosquito beasts. In the void, the merciless hunting continued. This was a one-sided massacre. The side with fewer people became the hunter. Often, with a flap of its mouth, it would open its mouth and suck crazily. In an instant, dozens or hundreds of blood marrow charcoal maggots would fall into its mouth. It did not care to chew and directly swallowed them. It was obvious that the blood marrow charcoal maggots that were swallowed into its stomach had not been refined at all. However, this did not matter. Yi Xian had plenty of time. When everything was over, the entire blood mosquito beast could fall into a deep sleep in the blood mosquito war. Hibernation. Just like the void soldier ladle and the weeping soul beast that had obtained the bloodline evolution resources before them, they used this deep sleep method to digest what they had obtained. Although the number of blood marrow charcoal maggots was huge, reaching hundreds of billions, they were too small and were naturally suppressed by the blood mosquito beasts. Moreover, the latter's number was not small, reaching tens of millions. Therefore, this great hunt in the starry sky did not last very long. In just a short 2 hours it was completely over. At this moment, when he turned his head to look, he could no longer see a single blood marrow charcoal maggot in the void. They had all been hunted down. As for the tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts, they had all eaten until their bellies were round. Their faces were incomparably red, and even their eyes were glowing. It was as if they were drunk. Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer as he gave the order. Whoosh! Swish, swish, swish. In the next moment, the dense sound of breaking through the air rang out. All the blood mosquito beasts rushed towards the blood mosquito war drum that was quietly standing in the distant void. They rushed into the beehive nodes on the war drum. Now, for these tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts, this blood mosquito war drum had long become their nest. In less than 10 minutes, tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts had disappeared. All of them had entered the blood mosquito war drum. Only the blood mosquito prince, who was Yi Xian's sworn brother, Shui Ben, remained in the void. Although Shui Ben's mind had yet to fully recover, compared to his initial madness, It was much, much better. Although the current him was still unable to speak to Yixian, even if he couldn't communicate with his divine sense, Yixian had sent a message to him. Xueben seemed to be able to understand the meaning of divine sense, and most of the time, he would not refuse. The reason why he did not return to the Blood Mosquito Wardroom was because Yixian had specially instructed him to stay behind for the time being. The reason why Yixian did this was naturally to give the 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots that were still hovering in the void beside him to Xueben to swallow. There were more than 1,000 purple marrow charcoal maggots in his hands, but now, he had only given a small number to Xueben. This was not because Yixian was stingy, but because Xueben could not bear so many purple marrow charcoal maggots at once. In the hunting operation just now, as the prince of the ferocious beast mosquito race, Xueben had hunted and swallowed the most blood marrow charcoal maggots. The other blood mosquito beasts only averaged about 10,000 blood marrow charcoal maggots. Only he had swallowed more than 100,000 blood marrow charcoal maggots. However, these blood marrow charcoal maggots would not be digested immediately. The energy they represented, as well as the unique effect on the evolution of the blood mosquito beast's bloodline, would be slowly released after Xueben fell into a deep sleep. Gradually, they would be completely refined. This process was also the process for Xueben and the other tens of millions of blood mosquito beasts to evolve their bloodlines and increase their cultivation. However, these 100 or so purple marrow charcoal maggots were different. Compared to the blood marrow charcoal maggots, the higher-grade purple marrow charcoal maggots had a stronger medicinal effect. After swallowing them, they would immediately be completely refined, and the unique effect on the bloodline of the blood mosquito beasts would be rapidly displayed. It appeared. Although these 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots seemed like a small number, according to Yixian's deduction, once these 100 or so purple marrow charcoal maggots were all swallowed, the final result was very likely to cause the blood mosquito beast's bloodline in Xueben's body to completely revert to its ancestor on the spot. Chapter 43-24. Xueben's current cultivation base had already reached the universe 6th order. He was only 4 small ranks away from the immortal old monster. However, due to the influence of congenital hysteria, as an old monster of the universe, not only did he not have the ability to speak, but he could not even communicate with Yixian through his consciousness. At that moment, under Yixian's summon, Xueben's figure shot over from the void not far away and landed 1,000 feet in front of Yixian. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yixian. Although his expression was ferocious and his eyes were bloodshot, there was no trace of evil in his body. Not a single trace of ferocious aura was emitted. Based on this alone, Yixian was certain that Xueben's mind was actually clear. He at least understood the relationship between Yixian and him, but he could not express it. Because of this, Yixian had never casually ignored Xueben. He had always treated him as a sworn brother and respected him. Brother Xueben, these are 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots. Compared to the blood marrow charcoal maggots just now, they are of a higher grade and have a more obvious effect on the evolution of the blood mosquito beast's bloodline. Due to their powerful effects, they will immediately appear after swallowing them. Come out. Yixian's eyes flashed when he saw Xueben in front of him. He cupped his fists and continued, furthermore, according to my deduction, once these 100 purple marrow charcoal maggots are swallowed, it is very likely that the blood mosquito beast's bloodline in your body will revert in a short period of time. It will reach the level of complete atavism. Furthermore, even your congenital hysteria might be completely cured because of this. In short, this is a rare opportunity that cannot be missed. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After saying that, Yixian waved his hand. The 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots hanging in the void beside him shot out in an instant. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Xueben, who was 1,000 feet away, and suddenly stopped. As long as he lowered his head and activated the power in his body, he would be able to swallow all of them in an instant. The void fell into silence. Opposite him, Xueben's eyes flickered with a bloody light. He seemed to be thinking about something and did not immediately respond. At this moment, Yixian's heart was in his throat. He was really worried that Xueben would refuse to swallow these 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots. If that was the case, Yixian, as his sworn brother, no matter how anxious he would casually restrain Xueben. Even if he had the ability to do so, He would not be able to do anything about it. He could not force it down his throat, could he? Fortunately, what he was worried about did not happen. After a short moment of contemplation, Schweben's eyes sparkled. He seemed to have made a decision. Finally, he opened his mouth and inhaled, swish, 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 without exception. The 169 purple marrow charcoal maggots that were floating in front of Schweben were all sucked into his mouth. He chewed and swallowed them all. At this moment, Yixian's heart that had been in his throat all this time finally settled down completely. Strands of bright light burst forth from his eyes, and they emitted an extremely blazing glow of expectation. Success or failure, it all depended on this one move. If these over 100 purple marrow charcoal maggots, which had an unparalleled effect on the bloodline evolution of the blood mosquito beast, could not completely cure Schweben's congenital madness, Yixian would probably be in despair. Now, after activating the bloodline ability of the 9 devil ape transformation, and using it to the 6th transformation, he already had the strength of a second-order Emperor Immortal. However, he was still helpless against Schweben's congenital madness. It was enough to show how strange and thorny this illness was. It could be said that the over 100 purple marrow charcoal maggots swallowed by Schweben were basically Yixian's last hope. Wang. As the more than 100 purple marrow charcoal maggots were chewed and swallowed, their effects were immediately displayed. A high-frequency pulsating sound, like the buzzing of insects, came from Schweben's body, and it didn't immediately disappear. It had always been there. At the same time, a cloud of blood-colored mist, like a rolling river, gushed out from the countless pores on Schweben's body like a spring. In just a dozen breaths, it enveloped an area with a radius of nearly 100 feet, covering Schweben's entire body. Schweben's figure was shrouded in it. Until now, the blood-colored mist surging out of his body had not stopped. Its momentum was even more violent. But the strange thing was that although this mysterious blood-colored mist was increasing in volume, it did not spread to more than 100 feet away from Schweben's body. The area. Instead, it seemed to be attracted by some invisible force in his body, and it kept lingering within 100 feet. Yixian's eyes flickered. In order not to affect Schweben, he had already retreated 100,000 feet away with the elephant fox Martin lying on his right shoulder. However, his divine sense and gaze never moved, firmly locking onto the billowing blood mist. Once anything happened to Schweben, he would take action at the first moment. This scene lasted for about the time it took to drink a cup of tea. During this process, a large amount of mysterious blood mist kept surging out of the countless pores on Schweben's body. The amount was so large that even Yixian was a little moved in the end. If it weren't for the stable aura of Schweben's divine sense, Yixian would have suspected that something was wrong. Fortunately, everything ended quickly. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the mysterious blood mist that was surging out of Schweben's body finally stopped. At this time, the blood mist that filled the area within 100 feet of his body had reached a terrifying level. It was as if it was real. The quality was average. Schweben's figure was no longer visible. Only by probing with divine sense could one sense his existence. In the next moment, the thick blood fog, which was 1,000 feet in radius, began to condense as if there was an invisible mysterious force that was controlling all of this. This time the speed was much faster. After only half an incense stick of time, the thick blood fog had completely condensed, finally forming an oval cocoon with a diameter of 10 feet. It was completely red, and Schweben's figure was in this blood-red cocoon. Inside the big cocoon, what was even more strange was that at this time, Yixian's extended divine sense power could no longer enter this big blood-colored cocoon. As soon as it touched the surface of the big cocoon, it was pushed aside by an invisible mysterious force. It was like reaching out and catching a fish. It was so slippery that it made one speechless. There was no point to exert any force. One had to know that although he hadn't activated the bloodline ability of the 9 devil ape transformation, he still had the strength of a 5th-order monarch immortal, while Schweben was only a 6th-order universe grade. A 5th-order monarch immortal was actually unable to enter the big blood-colored cocoon, formed by a 6th-order universe grade existence. If Yixian hadn't experienced this personally, he wouldn't have dared to believe it. Chapter 43:25. As Schweben's figure was sealed by the enormous blood cocoon that was around 3 meters in diameter, Even Yixian's king's divine sense was unable to enter and investigate his exact condition. The void fell into a deathly silence for a moment. Although Yixian was excited and felt that this was a good thing, he was still a little worried. Although he didn't say anything at this moment, a faint trace of worry could be seen between his brows. Nothing must happen to Xue Ben. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself to the Mad Mosquito Emperor in the future. More importantly, Yixian himself would feel guilty because of this, and it was very likely that the knot in his heart would be untied from now on. Boss, he should be transforming just like an insect forming a cocoon. It's a transition in life form. Perhaps it had sensed Yixian's worry, but the elephant fox Martin lying in his right shoulder spoke at this moment, breaking the oppressive silence. If a caterpillar wants to turn into a beautiful butterfly, how can it not go through the pain of breaking out of its cocoon? What about fulfilling one's wish? Yixian nodded silently, not saying a word. He understood this principle, but ever since he met Xue Ben, he had always been in this ignorant state of madness. Even before Yixian saw him, Xue Ben had always been in this kind of state since the moment he was born. He was tormented by a crazy disease. However, in Yixian's eyes, his self-awareness was clear, and the heart-trembling violence and madness was only occasionally. As such, the pain in Xue Ben's heart could be imagined. Without personally experiencing it, no words could explain it. All of this made Yixian unable to let go of it in his heart. Naturally, he was even more concerned about Xue Ben, this sworn brother who had always been trapped in a boundless sea of suffering. As the saying goes, one is confused by concern. The reason why he was so nervous at this moment was because of this. He was too worried. Even if he knew that it was useless, he couldn't get rid of it. Time slowly passed. In the void in front of him, the blood-colored cocoon with a diameter of 3 meters remained standing, without any changes. As for Yixian, he had been keeping watch in the void not far away. Although his divine sense was unable to penetrate this mysterious blood-red cocoon and investigate the situation inside, Yixian's gaze never left it for even a moment. In fact, he didn't know how long Xue Ben's transformation would take this time. If it was anyone else, Yixian could have kept the cocoon in his undying world or the farmer god cauldron. Otherwise, if the moment of breaking out of the cocoon and transforming into a butterfly took a long time, then the wait would be too long. It would be meaningless. It wasn't that Yixian hadn't thought of this before, but in the end, he threw it to the back of his mind. Xue Ben was different from others. The moment he was born, he was accompanied by this unfathomable madness. This bloodline atavism was his only chance. Yixian was worried that if he kept the blood-colored cocoon in his body, or the farmer god cauldron, what if Xue Ben transformed? If something unexpected happened during the atavism process, he wouldn't be able to sense it immediately. Of course, if the blood-colored cocoon in the void in front of him remained as it was now, without any movement, Yixian couldn't possibly continue waiting like this. In his heart, he had already calculated a bottom line. If he didn't exceed this time, he would have to wait a little longer. Yixian would find another way to deal with this matter properly. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Gotcha. Without any warning, an incomparably clear and crisp sound suddenly came from the void in front of him. Yixian's eyes flashed, and his face immediately revealed an excited expression. After this crisp sound, a large number of similar sounds could be heard. A large number of cracks appeared on the surface of the blood-colored cocoon standing in the void tens of thousands of feet away. Without a doubt, this meant that Xue Ben's transformation this time was nearing its end. He was like a caterpillar that had transformed into a beautiful butterfly, about to break out of the cocoon and fly out. Although he still didn't know what the final result was, whether Xue Ben could successfully achieve a complete atavism of his bloodline, whether the insanity that had been present since his birth had been cured. However, the movement coming from the blood-colored cocoon silence at least, meant that Xue Ben was fine. Just this point alone was enough to make Yixian, who had been worried for 3 whole days, feel relieved. Gotcha. Soon, the crisp cracking sounds in the void in front of him suddenly became denser. In just 2 or 3 breaths of time, the large blood cocoon with a diameter of 10 feet completely collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. A ferocious mosquito entered Yixian's line of sight. It was completely different from the previous Xue Ben. Although it was still only 10 feet in size, its form was more ferocious and fierce. invisibly exuding a thick, savage and fierce aura. Even the original body of the Mad Mosquito Emperor that Yi Xian had seen back then was not as domineering as this ferocious mosquito that was only 10 feet in size. Yi Xian immediately had a hunch that the ferocious mosquito in front of him was the true form of this species in the prehistoric era. After experiencing this life transition, the mosquito bloodline in Xue Ben's body had finally completely atavism. Even the cultivation aura emanating from the body of this ferocious mosquito was shocking. Previously, Xue Ben's cultivation had only been at the Universe 6th Order, but now not only had he entered the Immortal Realm, but he was also at the Immortal Realm 9th Order perfection, which meant that he was a half-step Marquis. In just 3 days, the bloodline transition had actually allowed his cultivation strength to increase by nearly 2 major realms in the blink of an eye. If this news were to spread, who knew how many Starry Sky powerhouses would go crazy? However, Yi Xian did not care about this. On one hand, he had experienced a similar cultivation breakthrough before. He had even experienced a sudden increase of 3 major realms in one go, so he was already used to it. On the other hand, his mind was already tied up by another matter, so he simply did not have the time to be happy about Xue Ben's huge increase in cultivation strength. Previously, although Xue Ben had not been able to completely transform and had appeared in front of Yi Xian in the form of a ferocious mosquito beast, at least his head had successfully completed the transformation. To put it simply, Xue Ben used to be a small mosquito about 10 feet in size. A small, blood-colored mosquito with a human head. Now, if nothing unexpected happened, after experiencing this life transition, the mosquito bloodline in Xue Ben's body had successfully achieved complete atavism. However, his human head was missing. The ancient mosquito in front of him was a real ancient mosquito from head to toe. This made Yi Xian feel very uncomfortable, as he felt a strong sense of strangeness. Looking at this ferocious mosquito, he even had the subconscious illusion that his sworn brother, Xue Ben, seemed to have disappeared and could no longer be seen. Kacha. Chapter 43-26. Crack. Crack, crack, crack. Before Yi Xian and the elephant fox ferret could react, the fragments of the black cocoon floating in the void in front of them were all eaten up by the desolate ancient fierce mosquito in front of them. At this time Yi Xian finally reacted, his eyes shining. He thought of the unicorn divine beast, an oviparous creature. Generally speaking, after breaking out of its shell, it would devour the broken shell. For them, this was the first delicious meal after being born. The shell that accompanied it not only protected the unborn beast in the shell, but it also contained a certain amount of energy. Perhaps this energy was very special. The desolate ancient fierce mosquito in front of them was obviously the same. This broken blood-colored cocoon was formed by a large amount of blood-colored mist that surged out of its body after being compressed to the extreme. Obviously, it was also a special form of energy. After devouring all of the broken cocoon, Xue Ben's life level leap was truly complete. At this time, when the last piece of the blood-colored cocoon was eaten, Xue Ben's cultivation aura skyrocketed again. Previously, he was only at the peak of the 9th level of the Immortal Realm, which was half a step into the Marquis realm, but now he had directly climbed to the level of a true Marquis realm. Not only that, but it was also the 2nd level of the Marquis realm. This scene made Yi Xian a little dumbfounded. After those seemingly inconspicuous blood cocoon fragments were swallowed by Xue Ben, the effect was actually like a level 21 treasure pill, or even better. After all, a level 21 treasure pill could only allow the peak of the 9th level of the Immortal Realm to break through to the 1st level of the Marquis realm, but it could not directly jump to the 2nd level of this realm. However, those blood cocoon fragments that had been eaten up did it. In fact, even the problem that Yi Xian was worried about just now seemed to have been solved. Because after eating those blood cocoon fragments and successfully breaking through to the Marquis Immortal Realm, the appearance of the desolate ancient fierce mosquito in the void in front of him was also changing. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it was rapidly changing. This was clearly a transformation. His incomparably ferocious mosquito form was slowly shrinking inwards, becoming gentler. In just a few breaths, he had already shown the embryonic form of a human. After a few more breaths of time, Xue Ben's form had completely changed. The ferocious desolate ancient fierce mosquito from before was no longer visible. Standing in the air was clearly a human man, and his head was the same as Xue Ben's original form. They were exactly the same. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's heart, which had been hanging in his throat, finally relaxed completely. An excited and pleasantly surprised smile appeared on his face, because at this moment, after completely transforming, Xueben's eyes were clearly incomparably clear. The color of blood had completely disappeared. If there were no accidents, his innate madness had most likely been cured. Brother Yixian, thank you for taking care of me all these years. Sure enough, as a bright light flashed in his eyes, Xueben, who was in the void 1,000 feet in front of him, cupped his fists and bowed to Yixian. He stopped abruptly halfway through his words and grinned. Forget it, there's no need for words like thanks. I am a brother. Ha ha ha. All right. You're really fine. Yixian was stunned for a moment, then laughed heartily with incomparable excitement, almost jumping up on the spot. At this moment, the knot in his heart was untied, and his heart seemed to suddenly relax. His state of mind inexplicably experienced an epiphany of sublimation. How do you feel? With a flash of his figure, Yixian's figure had already arrived in front of Xueben. He raised his hand and pressed it on his shoulder, looking up and down, his eyes full of joy. Now it is no longer a fierce mosquito beast, but a pure desolate ancient fierce mosquito. In the bloodline there seems to be a lot of corresponding talent inheritances, but right now I don't have time to sort them out, I'll deal with them later. With a faint smile, Xueben looked a little indifferent. Compared to his previous crazy and ferocious appearance, he seemed a little too calm now, but he still didn't lose his forthright attitude, and breaking through to the second order conferred marquee, only refining the 160. The result of 19 purple marrow charcoal maggots, and the energy of the 100,000 blood marrow charcoal maggots I swallowed before is still in my body. I haven't refined them yet. Later, I will need a long period of closed-door sleep. If I completely refine them and wake up, my cultivation strength should be able to enter the titled Emperor realm. This was definitely good news. After one deep sleep, he could enter the titled Emperor realm without even needing a single level 22 pill. This might have something to do with Xueben's desolate ancient fierce mosquito bloodline. Xiu! With a whistling sound, Yixian waved his hand, and a huge table and chair appeared in the void next to him, floating in the starry sky, looking very strange. On the table, there was a dazzling array of spirit wine and spirit fruits, and there was also a large piece of golden yellow fierce bird leg, taken from the body of a quasi-desolate ancient great master. Today, Xueben's illness was cured, and Yixian's knot in his heart was untied. It was truly a happy thing, worthy of celebration, and Yixian planned to drink to his heart's content. On the side, the elephant fox Martin stared at the spirit wine and spirit fruits on the table, especially the roasted leg of a fierce bird that was 1,000 feet in radius. It emitted an extremely rich and alluring fragrance and energy aura. At a glance, one could tell that it was definitely extraordinary, and it had long made him drool. You should sit down as well. This time Brother Xueben was able to obtain this opportunity because of you. This matter, I will remember your great merit. Yixian turned his head to look at the elephant fox sable. After he finished speaking, he immediately laughed and pulled Xueben to sit down. With a wave of his hand, the huge roasted leg of the fierce bird that was 300 meters in radius was instantly turned into dozens of pieces. A large piece automatically flew up and headed towards the blood. Xueben shot away. Brother Xueben, try this roasted bird leg. This was cut from the remains of a powerful quasi-desolate ancient great master level fierce bird and roasted with the Shenong 7-colored flame. It contains boundless energy. You just broke through, so you need this to stabilize your cultivation. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, a day and night had passed. The giant roasted leg of a fierce bird on the table had now turned into a giant leg bone, with some sporadic golden precious meat hanging on it. The other spirit fruits and spirit wines were also almost consumed. Among them, Yixian and Xueben were basically drinking, while the elephant fox Martin, who was sitting beside them, was eating heartily. Half of the roasted leg of a fierce bird that was thousands of feet long was probably eaten by this old fellow. Boss, I seem to be drunk. Just as they were chatting happily, the elephant fox Martin's face was flushed red. He staggered to his feet and turned to look at the fierce mosquito warrior beside him. He muttered, "Why don't you two eat first? I'll go over there and take a nap first." This old fellow hadn't drunk a few cups of spirit wine at all. Right now he wasn't drunk at all. It was just that his body had absorbed too much energy in a short period of time. His body couldn't bear it anymore, and needed to go into seclusion to refine it. Chapter 43:27. Summoning. Hearing this, Yixian was stunned. Soon after, he thought of something and the expression on his face instantly became strange. He suddenly thought of the primordial ancestor of the demon race. He had only found out about this when the Devil Emperor Emojutian told him about it all those years ago. All of this seemed to be related to the mysterious mother planet. The bloodline primordial ancestor of the demon race came from the mother planet. When he came to the first universe, he had several descendants and followers from other races with him. The Abyss Devil race of the first universe was the descendant of a descendant of the bloodline primordial ancestor, who had lived in this world. Later on, the bloodline primordial ancestor and his descendants, as well as followers from other races, left the first universe and embarked on a journey to find their way back to their mother planet. However, the descendant of the primordial ancestor, who left the demon race's bloodline in the first universe, left behind his descendants and became the first and second generation descendants of the demon race. They had been guarding the demon race's ancestral land ever since. Among them, the first generation descendant was an undying emperor. He was in seclusion for tens of thousands of years. Once he broke through, he would become an undying emperor. In the current three main planes of the universe, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was invincible. That primordial ancestor had several descendants, and the one who left behind the demon race's bloodline was only one of them. There was also a human and a beast who left behind descendants in the three main planes of the universe. Mosquito Butcher was a descendant of another primordial ancestor. He was a close relative of the demon tribe. Crazy Mosquito Emperor was the descendant of a ferocious beast follower of the primordial ancestor. Although he wasn't a demon, he had a close relationship with the demon race. At least they were on the same side. Besides, Mosquito Butcher and Crazy Mosquito Emperor were of the same generation as the first generation descendant of the demon race. They were the clones of the first generation descendant of the mysterious primordial ancestor, and the descendant of the ancient ferocious mosquito that followed him. From this point, it was inferred that the original bodies of Mosquito Butcher and Mad Mosquito Empress were at least Regis realm. However, as clones, Mosquito Butcher and Mad Mosquito Empress seemed to have been sealed in their bodies. Coincidentally, they had both lost their memories. They did not even know where their original bodies were. He had no idea where he had gone. Yixian had almost forgotten about this matter. But now, he suddenly heard Shueben say that there seemed to be a mysterious power calling out to him from the void in the distance to the left. Yixian suddenly thought of something. He started this matter. Shueben was already an official level undying. Not only was his divine sense strong, but he was also extremely sensitive to everything related to him. Since he felt this mysterious calling, then it definitely existed. It couldn't be an illusion. If a marquis could have this kind of illusion, then it would be a joke. However, as a mid-stage king, Yixian didn't have the slightest reaction to it. Even the elephantine Sable, who had 1/3 of the treasure-seeking mouse bloodline in his body, didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. Just this alone was enough to explain the mysteriousness of this mysterious summoning power. It was extraordinary. Besides, Shueben didn't feel this mysterious calling before. Instead, it was after he completed his bloodline atavism and became a pure desolate ancient fierce mosquito. Putting everything together, if there were no accidents, the mysterious calling power in the distance to the left was most likely related to the desolate ancient fierce mosquito empress. It was either the original body of Mad Mosquito Empress or other desolate ancient fierce mosquito empress. Moreover, the former was more likely, because the Mad Mosquito Emperor was Shueben's father. His missing original self and Shueben actually had this kind of relationship. There was the most direct karma between the two of them, and they could vaguely feel the call of their bloodline. Naturally, it was more intense. There's another possibility. After saying the first two possibilities, Yixian's eyes flashed. He continued, "After all, this is a fragment of the void of the great desolate world, and it's boundlessly vast. It's very likely that this is the main body of that great desolate world. If that's the case, then this mysterious mother planet might be in a certain direction in this fragment. And the bloodline primordial ancestor of the demon race left with a few of his descendants and the desolate ancient fierce mosquito that followed him in order to find a way back to their ancestral planet. To a certain extent, it's very likely that they are in this fragment of the void. In this fragment of the void. If that's really the case, then the mysterious calling you feel is very likely to come from the desolate ancient fierce mosquito that followed the demon race primordial ancestor, which is your grandfather. At this point, Yixian was the first to get excited. His eyes were shining, and his breathing was rapid. That demon race primordial ancestor had existed for too long. His identity and background were mysterious, and his cultivation must be extremely powerful. This was something that was set in stone. There was no doubt about it. Even the two young juniors beside him, as well as the desolate ancient ferocious mosquito that followed him, had left behind 3 descendants in the 3 great starry sky main planes of the current world. They were the ancestral descendants of the devil cultivator, as well as the original bodies of the mad mosquito emperor and the mosquito slayer old ghost. It was very likely that they were emperors. Then, the descendants by his side and the desolate ancient fierce mosquito that followed him were at least emperors. Even the last 5 realms, which were Universe Knights, Universe Masters, Universe Supreme, and one of the realms among the great beings of the Primordial Era and Primordial Era Supreme. As for the demon race primordial ancestor himself, according to Yixian's estimation, he was at least a Universe Supreme, and there was even a 30% chance that he was a true great being of the Primordial Era. This was a living, powerful being of the Primordial Era at his peak. Even in this mysterious space fragment of the Primordial Era, he was definitely an existence that could do whatever he wanted. If he could get on his good side with the relationship between Yixian and the demon race as well as the relationship between Mosquito Butcher Old Devil and Mad Mosquito Emperor, if he could borrow his power, how awesome would that be? What large space forbidden lands, top-tier space forbidden lands, and so on, he could simply ignore them completely. Thinking about this, Yixian immediately turned to look at Xue Ben, who was already dumbfounded. He rubbed his hands and couldn't wait to ask, "Brother Xue Ben, that mysterious calling power you sensed, how far is it? How about we go now? Let's rush over immediately, there's no time to lose." This, according to my intuition, the source of this mysterious calling power seems to be extremely far away, and it's definitely not something that can be reached in 3 to 5 years. Besides, Xue Ben's expression gradually became strange, and in the end, he even shook his head and smiled bitterly. He faintly sighed and then continued. "Besides, perhaps because my cultivation is still too weak, although I can feel the existence of this mysterious calling power, it's intermittent." Yes, but it was intermittent and not very clear. Chapter 43:28. If that's the case, then we can only put it aside for now. There's no rush anyway. Let's wait until you become an emperor first. When you're stronger, perhaps you'll be able to sense the summoning more clearly. After a moment of depression, Yixian nodded helplessly. It's about time. I should return to the blood mosquito battle armor and enter a deep sleep to digest the large amount of blood marrow charcoal maggots I devoured earlier. Xue Ben stood up and clasped his hands at Yixian. Without saying anything else, he turned around and left. Remember to throw that old sable out. Yixian suddenly thought of the elephant fox sable and quickly reminded. There's still a battle armor kinetic race's bloodline evolution resource that hasn't been confirmed yet. Don't slack off. Xue Ben's voice came from the front. Don't worry, throw him out immediately. As he finished speaking, he had already entered the core of the blood mosquito battle armor. Shortly after, a flash of light was thrown out from the core of the battle armor. It was the elephant fox sable. This old man was rather comfortable and had actually fallen asleep. Clearly, he was digesting the massive amount of energy he had devoured earlier. Now that he was thrown out of the core of the beehive by Xue Ben, he actually hadn't woken up yet. Xiao. Yixian waved his hand and stored the blood mosquito battle talisman into the undying world within his body. At the same time, he caught the elephant fox mink in front of him. Seeing that this old fellow wouldn't wake up in a short period of time, he was speechless. Forget it. Anyway, the problem of my unstable state of mind has been solved. And when Brother Xue Ben broke through earlier, my state of mind improved again because of the knot in my heart. Yixian's eyes flashed. Since the elephant fox sable is also in a deep sleep, I won't be in a hurry to continue my journey. I'll stay here and break through again while the iron is hot. When the old sable wakes up, I'll continue my journey. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. In the next instant, Yixian waved his hand and took out a large amount of cultivation resources from the farmer god cauldron. 10 drops of all evil origin liquid, 200 cubic meters of purple gold top-grade flesh medicine, and various top-grade treasures and body-tempering materials. Immediately afterward, as he stepped above the mouth of the Shenong cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored mist, the power of the cauldron field was also activated. The cultivation resources suspended in the void were compressed in the blink of an eye, turning into a ball the size of an infant's fist, and were swallowed by him. Then it rolled into his stomach. The breakthrough had begun. Boom! In the next moment, a loud explosion sounded out from within Yixian's body. The ball that he swallowed instantly transformed into an incomparably majestic river of energy, and an aura that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and the earth spread throughout Yixian's body's 4 limbs and 100 bones. The skeleton surged like a raging flood. Almost at the same time, Yixian's entire body blossomed with a dazzling radiance. His 1.08 billion pores all over his body were gushing with multicolored light. His entire person was like a deity, blossoming with dazzling brilliance. Hua! Walala! The clanging sound of chains that covered the sky and covered the earth also sounded out at this moment, continuing without end. Within Yixian's body, 2 thick shackles appeared out of nowhere and slowly swayed. The river of energy in his bones was surging, shaking the shackles inside his body all the time. The deafening noises were so loud that it felt like the world was falling apart. Yixian suffered endless pain every second. There was no telling how long it took, but when he finally regained his consciousness, he found that the continuous noises inside his body were gone. The 2 shackles that had appeared inside his body earlier were torn apart and gradually disappeared. As the 2 extremely thick shackles were finally completely broken, the anticipated system prompt quickly sounded out in Yixian's mind. Moreover, it was repeated twice in a row, causing one to be overjoyed. Ding! Congratulations to the host for a breakthrough in the ancient Dongshu arts. Your current level is the 6th level of the Star Lord state. Ding! Congratulations to the host for a breakthrough in the physical state. Your current level is the 6th level of the Star Lord state. He had made 2 breakthroughs in a row again. This time, the improvement of his state of mind brought him extraordinary benefits. Yixian had reached the peak of the middle level of the Emperor rank. His original body had only been in the 4th level of the Emperor rank before, but once he activated the bloodline power of the ancient demonic ape in his body, he could instantly reach the 5th level of the Emperor rank. Once he used the 6th transformation of the 9 demonic ape, his combat strength would immediately soar to the 2nd level of the Emperor rank. Now that his original body had broken through twice in a row and reached the 6th level of the Immortal Emperor, after activating the demonic ape bloodline in his body, Yixian would instantly enter the 7th level of the Immortal Emperor, which was the late stage of this realm. If he used the bloodline power of the 9 demonic ape and entered the 6th transformation, his combat strength would reach the 4th level of the Emperor rank. Compared to the beginning of the 2nd level of the Emperor rank, his combat strength would be greatly improved. If one were to include the boundless blood essence energy within the giant devil ape true body, the current Yixian would be able to fight even if he were to encounter a 5th or even 6th order Emperor immortal. As long as he wasn't a late Emperor, he wouldn't be in any danger of dying. Roar! 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 After breaking through before Yixian could open his eyes, an incomparably excited howl sounded out in his ears. It was clearly the voice of that old fellow, the elephant fox sable. It was as if he had just been injected with chicken blood, and it wasn't just one needle. When he broke through earlier, Yixian stepped into the mouth of the Shenong cauldron that was filled with 9-colored fog and sat down cross-legged. Old Diao wasn't thrown into the Shenong cauldron by him, but instead allowed him to lie on his right shoulder and sleep soundly. Fox Martin was only a foot long, so it was as light as a feather. It didn't affect him at all. At this moment, since this old man could howl, and he was howling with such vigor, it was obvious that he had already awakened. If there were no accidents, he had most likely made a breakthrough. These howls were clearly a sign of him showing off. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yixian opened his eyes and subconsciously grabbed Fox Martin, who was still lying on his shoulder, and threw him out of the cauldron. Looking closely, it was indeed so. Before this, the elephant fox ferret was only at level 1 Marquis realm. But now, after absorbing all the energy in his body, this old man was obviously at level 3 Marquis realm. He had reached the peak of level 3 Marquis realm. To be able to break through 2 small levels in a row at the Marquis level was extremely rare. No wonder the old guy was so excited, roaring like a wolf. Boss, I broke through. And it's 2 levels in a row. I just want to ask, how can such an amazing thing happen? Chapter 43:29. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, the farmer god cauldron turned into a streak of light and was absorbed into Yixian's undying world. Of the 4 great war Karas, the cultivation resources required for 3 of them have been settled. Now there's only the last war Kara left. However, the war Kara's war Kara is different from the slime race. It's a special kind of insectoid, and its unique biological wave contains a certain amount of the law of time, which is why it's suitable for the evolution of this race's bloodline. Hence it's extremely rare. Currently I have one, but its effect is average and there's not much of it. I'll have to rely on you for this. As he spoke, Yixian turned to look at the elephantine, his eyes flashing as he paused for a moment before continuing. There's still half a journey to the Forbidden Rising Sun, and we'll reach it in about 20 days. You'll have to work a little harder and pay more attention along the way. Try to find the cultivation resources required before we reach the Forbidden Rising Sunday. That way, not only will you be credited with a great merit, you won't have to stay by my side after you're done. You can enter the farmer god cauldron's internal space like the green ox and cultivate in peace, breaking through to the perfect 9th level of Marquis Immortal. Once you reach the 9th level, you'll become a king of Pharos in just a few days after consuming the level 22 pellet I've given you. Those simple words caused the elephantine's face to flush and his breathing to quicken. He yearned for the title of king too much, and from what Yixian said, as long as he could find the last cultivation resource suitable for the evolution of the slime race's bloodline, he would be able to obtain resources. He would be able to immediately enter the farmer god cauldron's internal space with large amounts of cultivation resources and cultivate in peace. At this moment he was already at rank 3 Marquis Immortal realm. To reach rank 9 he only needed 6 breakthroughs. With the help of a huge amount of top-grade cultivation resources, he only needed 6 breakthroughs. In Elephant Fox Ferret's eyes, it wouldn't take much time. 1 year was enough. 1 year. As long as I complete this last mission, I will be able to become a king in 1 year. At this point, the elephantine ferret no longer hesitated. With a flash of its body, it scuttled to Yixian's right shoulder. It crouched down and urged him on the spot. Boss, I won't say anything else. Let's go. I can't wait any longer. Yixian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Although he did not say anything, he did not delay any further. With a flash of his body, he instantly brought along the old marten, who was lying on his shoulder, and transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the distant void in front of them. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the horizon. The last half of the journey to the Rising Sun Forbidden Land would take about 20 days. Now 10 days had passed in the blink of an eye. They were already halfway through this half of the journey, but they did not gain anything along the way. In another 10 days or so, they would reach the border of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. If they did not make any discoveries in the last 10 days, the matter of finding suitable cultivation resources for the evolution of the slime race bloodline in a short period of time would be ruined instantly. At the thought that if they did not complete this mission, they would not be able to be like the green ox and enter the farmer god cauldron with large amounts of top-grade cultivation resources to cultivate in seclusion, the elephantine ferret was so anxious that it scratched its ears and cheeks. It was even more anxious than Yixian. After another 2 days, there was finally some movement in the void in front of them. This time, there was no warning from the elephantine ferret at all. Instead, it was Yixian who was the first to discover the abnormality. Because everything in the void in front of them was too obvious. As long as one was not blind, anyone could see it. The reason why the elephantine ferret did not warn Yixian before he discovered it was because Yixian was a king after all. Furthermore, he had activated the devil ape bloodline in his body, and transformed into the violent star ape form to travel. That was why he displayed it. His cultivation level was at the late stage of the 7th level king realm. The divine sense of a late-stage king was extremely powerful. Even though they were still hundreds of millions of miles away, Yixian had already detected the movement in a remote corner of the void in front of them. In the next instant, a familiar system notification sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for discovering the demonic star vines. Do you want to collect the demonic vine marrow immediately? Demonic vine marrow? Yixian's eyes lit up. He immediately retrieved all the relevant information from the information database of the devouring system in his body. After browsing for a while, Yixian's eyes lit up even more. This kind of thing was actually effective for the evolution of the slime race bloodline, and the effect was very strong. It could be said that it was extremely rare. Boss, you seem to have discovered something? Is it the kind of resource we are looking for? Just as Yixian was excited, the elephant fox mink's suspicious voice sounded in his ears. This old man still hadn't discovered the demonic star vines in front of him. After all, they were hundreds of millions of miles apart. Even though he was an official level undying, if he didn't extend his divine sense in this direction, he wouldn't be able to discover it. However, the old sable was lying in Yixian's right shoulder, so he was naturally extremely sensitive to the changes in Yixian's mood. He immediately sensed Yixian's uncontrollable excitement, and when he asked other than suspicion, there was also a hint of doubt in his tone. There was a strong sense of expectation in his tone. Your mission has been completed. Go and train in seclusion. Yixian didn't reply directly. However, his words had already explained everything. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the elephant fox mink, who was lying in Yixian's right shoulder socket, disappeared instantly. Yixian directly sent him into the internal space of the Shen-Nong cauldron. At the same time, Yixian took out a large amount of top-grade training resources from his undying world. Among them, there were 100 cubic meters of purple gold top-grade flesh medicine. In addition to the other resources, it was enough for the old mink to raise his strength to the pinnacle of the 9th level undying world. After swallowing a level 22 pill and successfully breaking through to the Emperor undying world, he would use it to stabilize his realm. After doing all of this, Yixian didn't hesitate any longer. A light flashed through his eyes as his figure shot out in an instant. In a short period of time, he traversed hundreds of millions of kilometers of space and arrived at the secluded space that he had discovered earlier. His body slowly slowed down. Yixian raised his head and swept his gaze to the right. His gaze landed on an abandoned star a million miles away. The corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. This demonic star vines was quite good at concealment. No wonder it wasn't discovered by other fierce beasts or survivors passing by in this space. At this moment, even though Yixian was only a million miles away from its hiding place, he extended his divine sense. Chapter 43:30. Come out, you've been exposed. With a cold smile on his face, Yixian's gaze was locked onto the incomparably enormous abandoned star that didn't have the slightest bit of life even under the detection of his late-stage conferred Emperor stage spiritual sense. His tone was firm. As long as you hand over all the demonic vine marrow, I won't make things difficult for you and will leave. Yixian said the demonic vine marrow, which undoubtedly pointed out the other's identity and origin. If he hadn't found some clues, he wouldn't have been able to do so. Screech! The demonic star vine hidden in the giant abandoned planet instantly realized what was happening. It no longer hid itself, and a shocking screech came from the inside of the giant planet. It echoed for millions of kilometers, and even the people inside the planet were shocked. The void trembled slightly under the ravaging of this sharp and ruthless howl, and a faint buzzing sound could be heard. Violent ape, how dare you target me? Don't you think you're too arrogant? As the roar sounded, a soft voice of divine sense soon came out from the giant abandoned star in front of him. Although the other party was a plant life form and had no human language, divine sense could transmit any information in the communication between starry sky powerhouses, because there was no race to hinder. At the same time, a powerful and terrifying aura surged from the inside of the planet. This was a king-ranked plant life form, and it wasn't an ordinary king-ranked plant life form, but a king-ranked pinnacle king-ranked 9th stage. Half-step king-ranked. No wonder this star sky demon vine had such a divine sense voice. As a half-step king-ranked even compared to star beasts, it was a plant life form with weaker battle strength. However, facing a mere king-ranked 7th stage violent ape, This star sky demon vine was very confident. The battle prowess of plant life forms was on the weaker side, but that was only when compared to star beasts of the same level. However, although the one that had just arrived was a star violent ape, which was known for its ferocious and tyrannical nature, its cultivation was 2 stages lower than the star violent ape, so the star demonic vine was completely unafraid of it. In fact, if a battle to the death really broke out, it was even confident that it could kill this star sky violent ape in one fell swoop. Shio! Pew pew pew! As the king rank star sky demon vine's warning voice faded away, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out from the giant abandoned planet that had been completely locked down by Yixian's aura. Along with this sharp piercing sound, there were also a large number of muffled popping sounds. This was caused by the layers of soil and rocks on the surface being pushed and rolled in all directions. Looking over, on the surface of the giant abandoned planet in the void in front of him, which could not be detected even by the powerful divine senses of a king-ranked expert, there was actually a giant vine that was thousands of miles thick breaking through the surface of the ground. It was like a terrifying giant serpent in the starry sky, soaring into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the blood-red vine that rushed out from the ground directly spread into the void of the universe beyond the thin atmosphere of the star. Its length was hundreds of thousands of miles. Moreover, its surface was covered with ferocious blood-red barbs, which were densely packed. At a glance, it instantly sent chills down one's spine. This was indeed a demonic vine. Now, it had only revealed a part of the vine that might not be the main body, but it was already so ferocious. Although it was a plant life form, its ferocity was not weaker than most of the star beasts. At the same time as this blood-red demonic vine rushed out from the surface of the abandoned planet like a demonstration, the star sky demon vine's soft and gentle divine senses voice rang out again at this moment. Violent ape, this is the last time I'm warning you. If you leave now, you will be killed. Arrogant? Kill this king? It seems like you don't understand the situation. Seeing that the other party was tough and actually threatened and warned him, Yixian shook his head. The corner of his mouth was still smiling coldly, but his face instantly darkened, and his eyes were extremely gloomy. He raised his head and let out a shocking roar. Demonic Ape 9 changes. 6th transformation. Following this furious roar, the power within Yixian's body instantly surged, as if a raging river was roaring. His limbs and bones surged with an endless amount of ferocious intent, and a terrifying amount of qi and blood that caused one's hair to stand on end gushed out from his body. Out. In the blink of an eye, his body, which was originally only 30 meters tall, rapidly expanded like a balloon. In less than 3 breaths of time, he had already reached a height of 10 million meters, like a human-shaped star. This was not all. At the same time that the size of the star sky violent ape skyrocketed, the cultivation aura emitted from its body was also 10 million feet tall. Previously, when it was in the true form of the demonic ape, the cultivation aura emitted from its body was at the 7th level of the King Immortal realm. When the 6th transformation appeared, the cultivation aura emitted from the star sky violent ape's body had reached the terrifying 4th level of the King Immortal realm. This was not an ordinary 4th level King Immortal realm. The star sky violent ape's body was 10 million feet tall, and its vitality was so majestic that it made one's hair stand on end. An ordinary 4th level King Immortal was far from being its opponent. Its true battle strength was comparable to an ordinary 6th level King Immortal realm, the peak of the mid-level of this realm. Roar! As the 6th transformation of the demonic ape was completed, the giant star sky violent ape raised its head and let out another roar. The surrounding stars in the void seemed to be responding to this roar, and in the blink of an eye, they trembled slightly under this earth-shattering roar. In fact, Yixian did not even activate the power in his body with this roar. Just the shockwave of this roar alone had such terrifying power. In the next instant, the star sky violent ape's eyes shot out 2 blazing red lights, and it turned its head to look at the giant abandoned star millions of miles away. Its divine sense locked on, and without moving it punched out. This is what you asked for. Since you are not willing to hand over the Devil Vine Essence Serum, then this king will take it myself. Boom! Almost in the next instant, in the void millions of miles away, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The abandoned star that was locked on by the star sky violent ape exploded without any suspense. It was simply unable to resist the terrifying power of this punch. Strength. As for the vast void along the way of this punch, it was not damaged in the slightest. It was completely unaffected. Screech. Chapter 43:31. Swish. Swish, swish, swish. The earth-shattering sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Even Yi Xian, who had been mentally prepared, was caught off guard when he saw this scene. His jaw dropped and his face was full of surprise. As Yi Xian activated the 9 Devil Ape transformation bloodline ability to the 6th transformation, his cultivation instantly soared to the 4th Order Emperor realm. His body also grew to 10 million feet tall, and with a single punch he destroyed the giant aura lock on him. The abandoned star was smashed into pieces. The entire body of the astral demon vine, which had been hibernating inside the star, was finally exposed to the void. It was too huge. Its main body was a huge plant sphere. It was like a large planet. Countless blood-colored demonic vines covered with barbs extended out from this sphere. Each vine was 10 million zhang long and incomparably thick. There were at least several thousand of them. It was like a giant python in the universe, waving wildly in the void millions of miles ahead. This plant life was not only a king-ranked existence, but also not an ordinary one. It was at the peak of the 9th Order Emperor realm, which was half a step away from the Emperor realm. The terrifying plant spiritual energy in its body was so vast that it made one's hair stand on end. Although it was not as big as the astral demon vine, although the Starry Sky Berserk Ape was comparable to the Starry Sky Berserk Ape, at least in terms of size, the difference between the two was not that big. At this moment, as the tens of thousands of python-like vines of the astral demon vine danced wildly in the void, its incomparably huge body was like a jellyfish swimming in the sea, rapidly shooting into the void behind it. In the blink of an eye, it traveled tens of millions of miles. Moreover, perhaps it was because the power contained in these tens of thousands of vines was too majestic. At this moment, as it waved crazily at an extremely fast speed, there were dense cracking sounds in the void along the way. This was clearly the void was about to collapse. The rhythm of this collapse, the style of the situation changed too quickly. Just a moment ago, this half-step Emperor Realm Star Demon Vine was incomparably arrogant. It was so arrogant that it revealed a blood-colored vine covered in barbs, as if it was demonstrating its power. It even threatened Yi Xian. But now, when it realized that its opponent this time was actually a middle-stage Emperor Realm expert whose strength was so terrifying that it felt completely powerless, the Starry Sky Demonic Vine actually didn't utter a single word and directly utilized its full strength to flee at top speed. You're pretty straightforward, but don't you think it's too late to escape now? A cold glint flashed in the violent star ape's eyes. With a flip of its right hand, the big-headed black stick transformed from the Shun-Nong pestle appeared once again. It was dragged behind it. With a large stride, its terrifying body that was millions of feet long was like a huge meteor in an instant. He shot forward. This Starry Sky Demonic Vine's cultivation was not weak. It had reached the half-step Celestial Emperor realm, and its main body and tens of thousands of blood-red vines that were like giant pythons were densely covered with sharp barbs. It was impossible for a plant life form of this level to be too simple. Even with the strength of the violent star ape's physical body, if it were to directly attack with its bare hands, its flesh would very likely be pierced through by these seemingly insignificant barbs. If it had some strange poison or something like that, it would be extremely troublesome at that time. Therefore, out of caution, Yi Xian did not intend to directly kill the opponent with his bare hands. Instead, he took out the big-headed black stick and prepared to brazenly kill the opponent. Although the Starry Sky Demonic Vine's speed was not slow, with tens of thousands of giant blood-red vines dancing wildly, it was only a half-step Celestial Emperor Realm expert after all. Compared to Yi Xian, who now had the battle strength of a middle-stage Emperor Realm expert, it was simply nothing. One level. With just a few simple steps, Yi Xian had already caught up. He was less than 1,000,000 kilometers away from the Starry Sky Demonic Vine that was still crazily retreating in the void in front of him. In the next moment, the violent star ape's eyes flashed with a cold light. It suddenly raised its right arm, held the big-headed black stick, and smashed it down fiercely. Boom! The skin of the Starry Sky Demonic Vine was indeed incomparably hard. Yi Xian, with the strength of a middle-stage Emperor Realm expert, held the big-headed black stick formed by the Shun-Nong pestle and smashed it down with all his might. However, the final result did not cause the starry sky demonic vine to explode. Instead, it only caused a large area of festering on its spherical central body. Not a single one of the tens of thousands of python-like blood-red demonic vines was broken, but there were a few at the same time, as the skin of the starry sky demonic vine's main body and thousands of huge vines peeled off. A large amount of blood-red liquid splashed out in the void, emitting a dense fragrance that could not be dispersed. Even Yixian subconsciously sniffed. His spirit was suddenly uplifted. Demonic vine blood? Really is a good thing. In the next moment, the eyes of the violent ape of stars lit up. It immediately understood what the blood-red liquid that splashed out was. Immediately, it did not hesitate. Its figure dashed forward explosively once again and smashed down a second time. Then it was the third time, the fourth time. In a short span of 10 breaths, the violent star ape waved its right hand that was like a giant pillar that held up the sky. The big-headed black stick ruthlessly smashed dozens of times. The starry sky demonic vine, which was originally retreating at an extremely fast speed, had already stopped abruptly in the void. It had no strength to escape again. At least 60% of the skin of its huge spherical body, as well as the tens of thousands of blood-red vines that looked like giant pythons, had been shaken off by the huge force, revealing the blood-red body that looked like fruit pulp under the skin. A large amount of blood-red liquid flowed out. The liquid flowed out and splashed into the void, emitting a rich fragrance that almost intoxicated Yixian. No wonder it has such a miraculous effect on the evolution of the slime race's bloodline. This kind of insect's mouth is the most picky. Normal cultivation resources are completely useless. Only this kind of thing can make them go crazy. A light flashed in Yixian's eyes. As he spoke, he had already put away the big-headed black stick that was transformed from the Shun Nong pestle in his hand. At least 60% of the starry sky demonic vine's skin had been shaved off by the huge black stick. Along with it were the densely packed sharp barbs on the skin. Now that the starry sky demonic vine's wet body was exposed, it was no longer a threat to Yixian. Naturally, there was no need for him to use the big-headed black stick. Whoosh! In the next moment, as the big-headed black stick was put away, the violent star ape waved its hand again and directly brought out the battle armor of time of the 4 great battle armors, which lay across the void not far away. With a thought, Yixian directly used his divine sense to send an order to all the slime in the battle armor. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Almost at the same time, silhouettes turned into streaks of light and charged out from the thousands of beehive nodes of the warzone of time. They were the kinetic force of the warzone of time, numbering in the tens of millions of slimes. At this moment, as soon as they charged out of the warzone of time, the tens of millions of slimes seemed to have smelled the rich fragrance that permeated the air, and a very unique buzzing sound came from their mouths, revealing endless excitement and excitement. Chapter 43-32. Hiss! Hiss hiss hiss! In the void, densely packed strange noises resounded in all directions. As the War of Time was activated, tens of millions of slimes swarmed out from the nests of the War of Time. A grand feast of this species began. Yixian did not continue his attack. Under the terrifying attacks of the black-headed club in his hand, the Demi-Emperor Star Demonic Vine was already half dead. Even its consciousness had fallen into a coma. Right now, as tens of millions of slimes swarmed out like hungry wolves, the Star Demonic Vine's body would lose a large amount of blood. If there were no accidents, it would never have the chance to wake up again. In its severely injured and unconscious state, it would be completely sucked dry by these tens of millions of slimes, and die. Yixian did not feel the slightest bit of pity for all this. The way of survival in the starry sky had always been like this. The weak were prey to the strong. Moreover, he had already given the other party a chance to survive. As long as the Star Demonic Vine recognized the situation and voluntarily handed over the blood in its body, even if it was only 60 or 70%, Yixian would have left. Even though the Astral Star Demon Vine's cultivation level would definitely drop drastically, possibly even to the early stage of the Emperor level, but at least it would be able to preserve its life. Given enough time, it would be able to recover in the future. Unfortunately, this opportunity was rejected by the other party on the spot, so there was no need for Yixian to say anything more. The current situation could only be said to be the Star Demonic Vine's own fault. At this moment, Yixian was standing in the void of the universe less than 1,000,000 miles away from the star demonic vine. He was extremely quiet, his eyes fixed on the star demonic vine. The scene in front of him was shocking, but there was no expression on his face. There was neither sadness nor joy, not even the slightest ripple. Tens of millions of slimes were all lying on the star demonic vine's body at this moment. Some were on the tens of thousands of blood-colored vines that had long been drooping like pythons, while others were on the main body of the star demonic vine. Clearly, all of the slimes were feasting like crazy. They were wantonly devouring the blood-colored liquid inside the star demonic vine, which was the so-called demonic vine blood. At first glance, it was as if a strange towering tree had fallen ill. On its ball-shaped trunk and countless vine-like branches and leaves, there were innumerable vermin that were madly devouring them. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, 6 hours had passed. Yixian was not in a hurry. He had been standing in the cosmic void less than 1,000,000 miles away. His eyes were fixed on the starry sky demon vines in front of him. During these 6 hours, the tens of millions of slimes didn't stop for a single moment. They were all madly absorbing the blood-colored liquid from the demonic star vine's body. Although the star demonic vine was huge, each vine was like a star python, and there were tens of thousands of such blood-colored giant vines. And the main body of the star demonic vine was a blood-colored ball as huge as a star. But at this moment, the number of slimes that were sucking on its body like worms was too great. With the terrifying base of tens of millions of slimes, plus the continuous frenzied devouring of the star demonic vine for 6 hours, this star demonic vine had become so big. The tens of thousands of vines of the star demonic vine that were like giant pythons had completely withered. The portion of slimes that were originally sucking on these tens of thousands of vines were obviously still unsatisfied. When the vines they were sucking on had completely withered, almost without any hesitation, they crawled along the vines to the center of the star demonic vine. On the main body of the demonic vine in the center, in fact, even the main body of the demonic vine that was like a star was obviously a lot smaller than before. But at this moment, as a large number of slimes that were originally sucking on the tens of thousands of vines gathered, the demonic vine ball that had already lost a lot of weight was instantly covered by countless slimes, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it quickly dried up. It shriveled up. If nothing unexpected happened at this rate, in at most 2 hours, this demonic vine ball that was originally like a star would completely wither like the tens of thousands of blood-colored demonic vines. It was also at this moment that the eyes of the starry sky violent ape, who was standing hundreds of thousands of miles in the outer space of the universe, flashed. Suddenly it had a new discovery: purple light. As the demonic vine ball in the void hundreds of thousands of miles away quickly shriveled up, specks of purple light inadvertently appeared inside it. Specks of purple light flickered with dazzling light. Whoosh! In the next moment, as its heart moved, the violent star ape no longer hesitated. With a wave of its hand, an invisible majestic force swept out. In an instant, it enveloped the demonic vine ball that was covered by countless slimes. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Almost at the same time, under the control of the terrifying divine sense power of the starry sky violent ape, the purple light that was originally inside the demonic vine ball was all extracted bit by bit, turning into a purple light that exploded in the starry sky. The ape shot over, and in the void, the faint sound of breaking through the air lasted for a dozen breaths before it suddenly disappeared. And with the disappearance of these sounds of breaking through the air, in the cosmic void in front of the starry sky violent ape, a little purple light that emitted an endless fragrance was quietly floating. From time to time, a ray of faint purple light flashed, dazzling people. This little purple light was only the size of an ordinary human fist, and it was clearly in a liquid state, but it condensed and did not dissipate like a crystal. At a glance, one could tell that it was definitely not an ordinary resource. Just as Yixian's eyes flashed with a bright light and he was about to take a closer look, a familiar system prompt immediately sounded out in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for discovering the Demon Vine's purple core. Quantity: 1,000 drops. Do you want to collect it immediately? Demonic Vine purple core? Chewing this term that he had never heard before, Yixian did not hesitate at all. He immediately retrieved all the information about this demonic vine purple core from the database of the devouring system in his body, and quickly browsed through it. After a short while, a look of realization appeared on the face of the starry sky violent ape, and its eyes were bursting with joy and excitement. The so-called demonic vine purple core was really not an ordinary starry sky resource. If the demonic vine blood essence was compared to the ordinary blood in the human body, then the demonic vine purple core was equivalent to the vertebral marrow in the human spine, which could be said to be extremely precious. This point could be seen from the fact that this starry sky demonic vine had the cultivation strength of the semi-emperor realm, but there were only 1,000 drops of the demonic vine purple core in the main body of the sphere. As for its effect, not only did it have an amazing healing power for physical injuries, but it could also fully recover the consumed blood, true essence, soul power, mental power, and so on in an instant. Chapter 43:33. Xiu. With a wave of his hand, a small and exquisite jade bottle appeared. With a thought from Yi Xian, the 1,000 drops of devil vine purple core floating in front of him instantly entered the small and exquisite jade bottle, and were absorbed into the undying world within his body. The harvest this time was too shocking. Not only did the tens of millions of slimes in the Time War Drum obtain a huge amount of demonic vine blood essence that could rapidly improve their bloodline, even Yi Xian himself obtained 1,000 drops of extremely valuable demonic vine purple core. This kind of resource could only be condensed in the body of the demonic vine of starry sky. Even if it was only a single drop, it would take a long time to condense. Not only could it be used to refine high-grade pills, but it also had other heaven-defying effects. For Yi Xian to be able to obtain 1,000 drops in one go was definitely a stroke of luck. If he hadn't met a half-step Emperor Realm demonic vine of starry sky, he wouldn't have been able to obtain such a bountiful harvest. After keeping the jade bottle, Yi Xian continued to wait patiently. After about 2 hours, the demonic vine of starry sky, which was originally as huge as a star, had withered to a diameter of about 1,000 meters. Its life force was long gone. The consciousness of this demonic vine had disappeared, and it had fallen. As for the tens of millions of slimes that were originally attached to the demonic vine of starry sky, they had all been separated from the demonic vine of starry sky. Each of them was like a drunkard swaying in the void. This was obviously the result of absorbing too much demonic vine blood essence, and the body couldn't take it anymore. It was about to fall into a deep sleep and be refined. Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer. With a wave of his hand, the Time War Raja in the distance shot over. An invisible suction force swept out from the thousands of beehive nodes of the War Raja. In less than an incense stick's worth of time, all the slimes in the air had already all of the slimes were sucked back into the beehive nodes of the Time War Drum. They fell into a deep sleep. It was believed that when these slimes woke up from their deep sleep, the next time they saw them, the life form of the entire race would definitely undergo a qualitative leap. Once Yi Xian upgraded the hardware of the Time War Drum accordingly, the power of the entire Time War Drum would instantly rise. From its current weak state, it would once again return to the list of weapons that even Yi Xian needed to rely on. Swish! After all the slimes returned to the beehive node, Yi Xian waved his hand and directly stored the battle aura of time into the undying world within his body. After that, he turned his head and swept his gaze towards the main body of the demonic vine that was only 1,000 meters in diameter in the void millions of kilometers in front of him. Don't underestimate this 1,000-meter-long sphere that had shrunk countless times compared to before. Inside it was all precious demonic vine blood. Not only did it have a miraculous effect on the evolution of the slime race's bloodline, it was the same for the starry sky masters of any other race. The only difference was that the effect was slightly inferior to that of the slime race. The reason why Yi Xian had left behind this 1,000-meter diameter demonic vine blood was because he wanted to collect some in case he needed it in the future. On the other hand, he planned to take advantage of this opportunity to absorb some of the demonic vine's blood and combine it with other cultivation resources to attempt a breakthrough. Of course, the demonic vine purple core couldn't be left out. In any case, there were a total of 1,000 drops. Boom! With a punch, the main body of the demonic vine sphere, which was 1,000 meters in diameter, instantly exploded. Countless blood-red demonic vines' blood splattered, and an intoxicating fragrance filled the void. Yi Xian waved his hand and took out a small green jade bottle. He held it upside down in the air, and an invisible suction force swept out from the small green jade bottle. Like a whale sucking in water, half of the demonic vine blood was collected in an instant. Immediately after keeping the small green jade bottle into his undying world, Yi Xian's figure shook, and he was released from the demonic ape sixth transformation. His figure was like a deflated balloon, and he shrunk back to his original height of 30 meters in the blink of an eye. He was still in his star-violent ape form. As for his cultivation base, it fell back to Emperor level 7. In the next instant, the remaining half of the demonic vine blood shot out from the void in front of him, turning into a liquid sphere with a diameter of a few hundred meters. It was so thick that it made one's hair stand on end. When it arrived in front of him, the liquid ball that was hundreds of meters long had already been compressed to the size of a nascent soul fist by Yi Xian's activation of the Shenong Cauldron's domain. It was bright red and looked like an incomparably sweet and strange medicinal pill. Yi Xian swallowed this crimson pill that was compressed from a huge amount of demonic vine blood. Without any hesitation, he took out 100 drops of the demonic vine purple core from his undying world. Together with 10 drops of the all-evil origin liquid and 100 cubic meters of purple gold top-grade flesh medicine, he swallowed them one after another. After doing all this, he waved his hand and summoned the farmer god cauldron. With a step, he arrived at the mouth of the cauldron filled with 9-colored mist. Without any hesitation, he closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged, beginning a new round of breakthrough. Walala! Almost in the next instant, the sound of chains that covered the sky and earth resounded loudly in Yi Xian's body. This time, the shackles that appeared in his body were still too. This meant that the power formed by the fusion of the cultivation resources he consumed this time was enough to allow him to break through 2 small ranks. However, the prerequisite was that while he was refining the majestic energy river in his body, he had to be able to control it and successfully tear apart the 2 shackles that appeared in his body completely. Yi Xian was already familiar with all this. Without any pause, he immediately activated the huge river of energy. In the hundreds of meridians in his body, he began to circulate the great circulatory cycle again and again, accumulating power through it. In the end, there was no suspense. When all the energy was refined, the shackles broke with just one impact. As the 2 extremely thick shackles were finally completely broken, the anticipated system notification sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Level 8 Regis Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body. Current realm. Level 8 Regis Immortal. With this breakthrough, Yi Xian's battle strength rose again. Level 8, he was now a late-stage king. Before this, his original body's cultivation base was only level 6 Regis Immortal. Once he activated the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, he could instantly reach level 7 Regis Immortal. Once he used the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, his battle strength would immediately soar to level 4 Regis Immortal. And now, after activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, Yi Xian would instantly reach level 9 Regis Immortal. If he used the 9 demonic ape transformation bloodline ability and entered the 6th transformation, his peak battle strength would reach the 6th level of the Emperor Immortal realm. His battle strength would increase tremendously. Chapter 43-34. Following this breakthrough, Yi Xian's cultivation base had reached the 8th level of the titled king, and this was still under his original body's normal state. Right now he'd activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and transformed into a 30-meter-tall starry sky berserk ape. His strength had risen by 1 rank. Therefore, the raging ape's current cultivation base aura was that of a 9th-rank monarch, which was a half-step emperor. A half-step emperor powerhouse's speed was much faster than a 7th-rank monarch powerhouse. Therefore, it only took Yi Xian a few days to leave the last short stretch of the journey to the forbidden land of the rising sun behind him. The cosmic void about 100 million miles ahead was the edge of the forbidden land of the rising sun. Yi Xian did not continue to move forward, but decided to lie in wait at the edge of the forbidden land. Like before, he would first hunt an ordinary immortal rank ferocious beast of the forbidden land. He would first use Soul Search to investigate the current situation of the forbidden land of the rising sun. An ordinary immortal rank ferocious beast of the forbidden land would naturally not know too much important secret information about a large-scale forbidden land of the stars that was guarded by a ferocious beast emperor. However, what Yixian urgently needed to know at the moment was just some basic information. It was completely enough. After all, it was a large-scale forbidden land of the stars that was guarded by a ferocious beast emperor. Its influence covered a much wider space territory, and the number of ferocious beasts of the various forbidden lands had increased by many times compared to the previous forbidden land of the behemoth. In addition, Yixian currently understood that there were no more powerful top-level forbidden lands of the stars that were guarded by an emperor-rank existence in the vast space of thousands of trillions of miles. Only on the other side of this vast space was a large-scale remnant star region of the same level. It could be said that this forbidden land of the rising sun basically did not have to worry about being provoked and invaded by external enemies. Therefore, the frequency and density of all the ferocious beasts of the forbidden land of the stars in the forbidden land of the rising sun had increased compared to a mid-level forbidden land of the stars like the forbidden land of the behemoth. There were too many of them. Under such circumstances, Yixian easily encountered an ordinary immortal rank ferocious beast of the forbidden land of the stars hundreds of millions of miles away from the forbidden land of the stars. Seeing the opportunity, Yixian suddenly attacked, and the immortal rank ferocious beast leader did not even have the chance to make a sound before it was killed on the spot. Body and soul was almost destroyed, leaving only a strand of its soul for soul search. After a round of soul searching, Yixian had a rough understanding of the basic situation of the entire forbidden area. His entire heart sank, his expression was gloomy, and he fell into deep thought. This kind of large forbidden area was different from the small forbidden area and the medium forbidden area that Yixian had come into contact with before. He didn't only have one star field. In fact, the entire forbidden land of Rising was made up of 4 vast planetary regions. Each of these regions was a little larger than the forbidden land of Rising, and each of them had over 1,000 planets with life, a dozen pharaoh kings, and more than a dozen pharaoh kings. Countless ferocious beasts from the forbidden land. Altogether, there were more than 50 ferocious beast kings in the forbidden land of the star region, and 500 to 600 marquee immortals. This was because at the junction of the 4 star fields, there was a relatively small central star field. Although the central star region was smaller in size, it was the core of the forbidden land of the star region. It was surrounded and protected by the 4 star regions. In the central star region there were about 10 ferocious beast kings. In addition, the ferocious beast emperors of the forbidden land of the star region were also guarding the central star region. The 10 ferocious beast kings who were qualified to reside in the central star region of the forbidden land of the star region were all elites of the kings. Their cultivation base had all reached the great circle of the undying emperors. In other words, in the central star region there were only half-step immortals. There were more than 10 emperors. And there were 8 true ferocious beast emperors. There were 2 early, middle, and late emperors. In addition, there were 2 great circle of the emperors. In other words, they were half-step emperors. Not to mention all 8 ferocious beast emperors, Yixian could not deal with just these 2 half-step emperors. Unless the headless infant corpse woke up from its slumber. Even if Fairy Zixia had awakened and recovered her cultivation to the peak of the 9th stage of the emperor realm, Yixian's side was only a half-step emperor. Even if he could execute the 9 Devil Ape transformation's bloodline ability to the 6th transformation, his strength would only reach the 6th order Emperor realm. Even if he were to take into account the massive blood essence energy in his body, he would only be able to fight against 7th or 8th order emperors at most. However, a half-step emperor at the great circle of the emperors would definitely not win. In the past, Yixian was often able to fight across realms. However, as his cultivation grew higher and higher, the effects of the supreme divine abilities and the Shenong cauldron that he possessed on his battle prowess had clearly weakened. The importance of one's strength was becoming more and more obvious. In addition to this basic information about the forbidden land of the rising sun, Yixian also learned some information about the netherworld furnace from the remnant soul of this ordinary immortal level ferocious beast. The netherworld furnace was indeed in the forbidden land of the rising sun, and it had been here for some time. However, the strange thing was that the netherworld furnace, which had always been ferocious, had almost become a symbol of endless slaughter in the 3 main starry sky planes of the world. Since the netherworld furnace had come to the forbidden land of the rising sun, it had not carried out a similar slaughter of the ferocious beasts here. This was not like the netherworld furnace's style, which made Yixian frown. He felt that things were not so simple. The Netherworld Furnace's sudden change in style was definitely a conspiracy. Unfortunately, the ordinary immortal rank ferocious beast whose soul was searched by him was too weak after all. In a behemoth like the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, its status was simply negligible. Therefore, the information it had was limited, and it basically did not come into contact with anything. It was a real secret. Therefore, Yixian was still unable to analyze the true purpose of the Netherworld Furnace's arrival in the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun. However, Yixian was not completely empty-handed about the Netherworld Furnace. At least, this ordinary immortal-level ferocious beast still had a certain level of knowledge about the current power state of the Netherworld Furnace from the remnant soul memory. Ever since it came to this area, although the Netherworld Furnace did not carry out a bloody massacre like it did in the past, it was still a primordial treasure of the same level as the Shinong Cauldron. As long as it was a starry sky expert including ferocious beasts, there was no one who didn't covetously covet it. It could be said that the Netherworld Furnace had been targeted by the upper echelons of the 5 great star fields in the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun as soon as it came to this area. The 40 or so ordinary kings guarding the north, south, east, and west star fields were naturally not qualified. Even if they wanted to, they did not dare to make a move. In fact, even the dozen or so half-step emperors living in the central star field were the same. Chapter 43-35. In the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, the 8 sovereigns, including the 2 Ninth Order sovereigns, had all tried to subdue the Netherworld Furnace, but without exception they all failed. This showed that the Netherworld Furnace's current battle strength had at least reached the Emperor realm. Of course, the Netherworld Furnace's power was originally extraordinary. Even when it was still in the origin of all evil star field, it could easily crush the remains of the primordial supreme sovereigns. It even escaped into an unknown void crack to collect the remains of the primordial supreme sovereigns. It even entered a void crack to retrieve a large number of remains of primordial creatures. As a primordial supreme treasure like the Shinong Cauldron, it was originally very difficult to subdue. The 8 sovereigns of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land could not subdue it, but it did not mean that its true battle strength had reached the Emperor realm. The reason why Yixian came to this conclusion was because the 8 ferocious beast emperors of the Rising Forbidden area weren't just trying to capture it. One of the half-step titled emperors had even fought a great battle with the Netherworld Furnace in a fit of anger. The final result was that this half-step emperor was defeated. So, naturally, they could make a rough assessment of the Netherworld Furnace's battle strength. Moreover, the strength of the Emperor realm was only a conservative estimate of the lower limit. It could be even stronger. With this kind of powerful battle strength and its grade as a primordial supreme treasure, the Netherworld Furnace could completely do whatever it wanted in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. In the entire Rising Sun Forbidden Land, all the fierce beasts in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land could not do anything to it. However, even though the Netherworld Furnace possessed a powerful battle prowess that allowed it to run amok in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, it did not go on a killing spree here, nor did it leave. All day long it was as if it was just strolling around, one moment flying here, the next moment flying there, and the next moment flying there. It was an extremely strange feeling. Initially, because of its arrival and its terrifying battle prowess that even half-step titled emperors couldn't do anything to, the beasts in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun were terrified. However, as time passed, the beasts in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun discovered that although its battle prowess was strong, it seemed to be natural. After seeing that it was harmless, the fear that had just sprouted gradually faded away. Now 2 years had passed, and the countless ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun seemed to have gotten used to the existence of the Netherworld Furnace. Even if the Netherworld Furnace shot past them in the void, they would not feel too much fear. Uneasy. Such a scene, if not for the information obtained through the soul search, there was no possibility of falsification. Yixian almost did not dare to believe it. There must be a conspiracy. After pondering for a while, a cold light flashed through Yixian's eyes as he muttered to himself. However, if we want to find out the inside story of this matter, it's already unrealistic to rely solely on soul searching. Even the strongest experts in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun are only those 2 half-step emperors. I'm afraid that he wouldn't know the true purpose of the Netherworld Furnace. At most, he would only be able to see some clues. The only way is to sneak into the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, lay low, and secretly observe the movements of the netherworld furnace. From there you can find traces and deduce and analyze. Only then will you be able to obtain an answer. If he wanted to sneak into the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, and it was very likely that he would have to hide for a long time, with Yi Xian's current strength at the peak of the 9th stage titled Emperor, it was obviously unrealistic. In the entire Rising Sun Forbidden Land, there were only 60 or so existences above the Emperor-conferred realm, and only the dozen or so half-step Emperor-conferred realm cultivators who resided in the central starfield were existences with high status and authority. In the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, everyone knew about Yi Xian. If a new face like him suddenly appeared, he would be exposed immediately. However, if his strength was too weak, it would be extremely inconvenient. After pondering for a while, he decided to hide his strength at the level of Marquis Undying, and at the first stage of Marquis Undying. In the entire 5 starfields of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, there were about 600 Marquis Undying, and Yi Xian deliberately hid his strength at the first stage of Marquis Undying. This was very likely because he had just broken through from the peak of the 9th stage Undying, so his concealment was higher. It was foolproof. After making the decision, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately hid his strength at the first stage of Marquis Undying, but his body still maintained the appearance of a space-violent ape. In this vast Rising Sun Forbidden Land, there was also a space-violent ape with a space-violent ape. In this vast space, there was no need to choose another space-violent ape bloodline. After everything was ready, Yi Xian immediately rushed out of the abandoned star where he was hiding. His speed wasn't fast or slow, roughly the same as some of the Forbidden Land's fierce beasts that occasionally appeared around him. He was very sure that he was heading towards the Rising Sun Forbidden Land in front of him. The area he entered was the southern star region of the 5 great star regions of the Rising Sun Forbidden area. Therefore, after entering, Yi Xian didn't stop at all and sped north. Because the netherworld furnace was now active in the central starfield, which was surrounded by the 4 peripheral starfields, Yi Xian took the risk to enter the Rising Sun Forbidden Land to investigate the netherworld furnace's movements and schemes. This was something that he had to get close to before he could realize. The Rising Sun Forbidden Land was indeed worthy of being the only large-scale forbidden land in the vast space within a radius of 1 trillion miles. Previously, Yi Xian didn't have a deep impression of it when he was far away in the periphery, but now that he entered the southern starfield, what he saw was different. The scene was immediately different. The southern star region alone was larger than the forbidden land of the behemoth. There were innumerable planets within, and there were more than 1,000 living planets with more than 10 feral kings guarding them. Looking around, there were all kinds of fierce beasts of different levels of cultivation in the space. It was very lively. As such, Yi Xian rushed all the way to the north in this area and didn't stand out so much. Anyway, there were fierce beasts of the Forbidden Land everywhere in the space, so no one would deliberately lock onto him and pay attention to him. At this speed, Yi Xian took more than 10 days to cross the entire vast southern starfield and enter the central starfield, which was surrounded by the 4 major starfields. This indeed wasted a lot of time, but it couldn't be helped. After all, he had already entered the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. If his strength was too strong and his speed was too fast, it would definitely attract unnecessary attention, and it was very likely that his identity would be exposed. Everything was based on safety. After entering the central star region, Yi Xian wasn't in a hurry to travel. He hunted an ordinary undying at the edge of the area, and confirmed the approximate location of the recent appearance of the netherworld furnace. After that, he continued on his way and headed straight for the target area. Although the central starfield wasn't as vast as the 4 major starfields surrounding it, it wasn't too far off. Moreover, because the 8 great emperors in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land were all guarding it, there were also 10 half-emperors, so Yi Xian didn't have to worry about it. Chapter 4336. At this moment, a familiar system notification sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. A dangerous star field has been discovered. Appraisal result. Void vortex. Danger source. Unknown. Danger factor. Unknown. Do you wish to explore immediately? Hint. If the exploration is successful, there is a chance of upgrading the system title. System current title. Level 5 Interstellar Raider. System next title. Level 4 Interstellar Controller. Interstellar Controller. This title comes with a halo effect. On the basis of the previous 5 titles, Interstellar Traveler, Interstellar Adventurer, Interstellar Explorer, Interstellar Pathfinder, and Interstellar Raider, a new system ability will be added. Activated. At the same time, the number of interstellar coordinates imprinted on any universe plane will increase from the previous 2 to 3. Ding! System explanation complete. Do you wish to begin the exploration immediately? He had not even seen the Netherworld furnace, but he had already encountered a system exploration mission that had suddenly appeared. As the system notification in his mind ended, Yixian immediately fell into deep thought. His eyebrows were tightly knitted, and his eyes flickered endlessly. Speaking of which, the system exploration mission had not appeared for a long time. This sudden appearance was indeed good news for Yixian, but at the same time he was deeply worried, which was why he was so hesitant at this moment. The previous level 5 system title, which was the Interstellar Raider title, had not only added a new system ability on the basis of the original level 4 title, but also helped Yixian forge the 4 great warriors later on. System. At the same time, the number of interstellar coordinates imprinted on any universe plane increased from the initial 1 to 2. Moreover, when the system title was successfully upgraded to level 5, Yixian's mental power, secret techniques, and magical powers, as well as the various bloodlines in his body, had also improved to a certain extent. It could be said that the benefits he had obtained were enormous. However, the reason he could obtain these benefits was because of the final success of the 5th system exploration mission. However, if the system exploration mission had failed that time, Yixian would have faced a very severe punishment. That was, the system title would directly be downgraded by 1 level, and the corresponding title ability and benefits would automatically disappear. The previous 5th system title exploration mission had already been so severe. Now that the system exploration mission had suddenly appeared, the punishment would definitely be even more severe if he failed. At least, it would not be lighter than the previous time. In other words, if the system exploration mission failed this time, Yixian's current level 5 title would very likely be directly downgraded by 1 level, from the current Interstellar Raider to the previous level 4 title, which was Interstellar Pathfinder. At the same time, he would lose the corresponding abilities and various benefits of the level 5 Interstellar Raider. At that time, the forging system that had been activated would be shut down again. The original benefit of being able to imprint 2 interstellar coordinate jump points in any universe would also revert to being able to imprint only 1, including the bloodlines, secret arts, and divine abilities after the successful exploration last time. The level of all kinds of bloodlines, secret arts, and divine abilities would all be reduced. This price was simply too great and unbearable. Therefore, Yixian had no choice but to consider it carefully. However, although the risk was high, if the system exploration mission was successful, the benefits would also be many. Putting aside the fact that a new system ability was about to be activated, just the fact that each of the existing universes could only imprint 2 interstellar coordinate jump points was enough to cause Yixian's heart to be moved by the fact that there were 3 of them in each of the existing universes. This void fragment of the universe was indeed too vast. Even with the terrifying cultivation of emperors and Thear-cranked martial artists, they still felt that it was vast and boundless. Yixian had already imprinted 1 interstellar coordinate jump point in this void fragment of the universe, which was the Sangji star sector that he had first arrived at. Now, he could only imprint 1 interstellar coordinate jump point in this void fragment of the universe. It was indeed a little insufficient. If he could add 1 more, it would be of great significance. Furthermore, with the success of the system exploration mission, Yixian's various bloodlines, as well as the various secret techniques and abilities that he had mastered, would definitely be upgraded again. Just like the previous time, all in all, although the risk was high, the benefits were even greater. As a strong martial artist in the starry skies, he had to be courageous and brave in front of him. If he was timid and uncertain, how could he move forward? There was not much time left. The reappearance of the Netherworld furnace and its strange behavior indicated that it was up to something. Basically, it was an established fact that the Chaos World was descending and was getting closer and closer. When that time came, it would be a real catastrophe. Even if Yixian had the battle strength of an emperor, he might not be able to survive, let alone the many friends and subordinates that he cared about. Now that there was no way back, the only choice in the face of any danger was to cut off all means of retreat and move forward. At this thought, Yixian no longer hesitated and immediately sent an affirmative reply to accept the system's title exploration mission. In his mind, the familiar system prompt sounded. Ding! Congratulations, host! Successfully activated the system's title exploration mission. If the exploration is successful, there is a certain chance of upgrading the system's title. System's current title: Level 5 Interstellar Raider. System's next title: Level 5 Interstellar Controller. Galactic Controller. This title comes with a halo effect. On the basis of the previous 5 titles: Galactic Traveler, Galactic Adventurer, Galactic Explorer, Galactic Pathfinder, and Galactic Raider, a brand new system ability will be added. Activated. At the same time, the number of interstellar coordinates imprinted on any universe plane will increase from the previous 2 to 3. Systems requirements for completing the exploration mission. Pending. Activated after entering the star vortex. Punishment for failure of the exploration mission. System's title will be downgraded by 1 level. As expected, once this exploration mission failed, the existing 5th level title would automatically be downgraded by 1 level, directly returning to the previous 4th level of the Interstellar Pathfinder. Although he had already realized this, Yixian's heart couldn't help but tremble when he suddenly heard that this punishment would become a reality. He immediately shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. However, Yixian had already accepted the system's exploration mission that suddenly appeared this time, but he did not immediately start the exploration. After all, the system prompt did not give a time limit for the exploration. Of course, this matter could not be delayed. It was too long, otherwise, other unforeseen events would inevitably occur. After pondering for a while, Yixian immediately returned along the original path and quietly left the forbidden rising land. He only stopped when he was 1 billion miles away from the edge of the forbidden rising land. His figure flashed and swept toward a nearby abandoned star. Chapter 4337. After 1 billion miles away from the rising sun forbidden zone, Yixian entered an abandoned planet. He waved his hand and took out the farmer god cauldron. As he extended his spirit sense into the cauldron, he found that green cow wasn't in closed-door cultivation. It seemed to have just broken through a small level and was preparing for the next one. Shio. As he thought about it, a weak sound of breaking through the air sounded out. The green ox, which was originally inside the Shinnon cauldron, was directly kicked out by Yixian. As soon as his figure appeared, he was still a little confused about the situation. He looked left and right with a bewildered expression. It snorted. He walked over and asked, "Boss, what's the matter? Why did you suddenly kick me out? I just broke through to Emperor Level 2 and was preparing to continue my closed-door cultivation." "Don't worry about closed-door cultivation. When we return to the Phoenix Blood Forbidden Zone, there'll be plenty of time for you to do it." Yixian waved his hand and interrupted Green Cow. His expression turned serious as he continued. "I encountered something in the Rising Sun Forbidden Zone. It's very likely that I won't be able to return in a short period of time. However, the strength of the Space Nomadic Army in the Phoenix Blood Forbidden Zone can't be delayed. Hence, I need you to bring back some level of treasure pills. When we return, you'll be in charge of the entire Phoenix Blood Forbidden Zone temporarily. Luckily, even if I'm not here, there's a total of 6 kings in the Forbidden Zone, including you. Even though they're all in the initial stage, there's no strong medium space forbidden zone within 100 billion miles. You'll be fine." After he finished speaking, Yixian directly waved his hand and shot a few storage bottles towards the green ox. Inside were level 20 to level 23 treasure pills. Yixian had more than 5,000 level 20 treasure pills for breaking through to Undying. This time he gave Green Cow a total of 2,000. He had more than 500 level 21 treasure pills for breaking through to official level Undying. He gave 200 of them. He had 38 level 22 treasure pills for breaking through to Emperor level Undying. This time he gave 20 of them. Yixian only had 4 level 23 pellets to break through to the Undying Emperor level, but he only had 2 of them, so he only had 2. The value of this batch of pills was simply immeasurable. Even the 2 ninth-order peerless sovereigns in the forbidden land of Rising Sun would be shocked if they were to take a look at it. But now they were all stored in storage bottles, and they were casually tossed to the green ox. The old man obviously didn't expect Yi Xian's first move to be so terrifying. After receiving the 4 storage bottles, he checked them with his spirit sense. He was so scared that his hooves trembled, and he almost dropped the 4 bottles. "Boss, there are so many precious pills, and there are actually 2 Emperor-bestowed pills. You just casually gave them to me." After staring blankly at Yi Xian for a few moments, the old fellow's face was about to turn red. "Aren't you afraid that this old ox will take them and run away? With this batch of resources you can run to a place where you can't find them. In time you'll be able to create a large-scale forbidden space. If you want to run, then run. Anyway, I've already given you 1 Emperor's treasure pill before. Even if you don't count the 2 pills I gave you this time, you still have 1. You probably won't need the Emperor's treasure pill in the near future." Yi Xian indifferently shrugged his shoulders. He rolled his eyes and said, "It's even better if you run away. This time this king will go and collect the materials. When the time comes, I'll be able to save one of the Emperor sealing pellets that I refine." Emperor level treasure pill? Slurp! Hearing this, Green Cow's swollen eyes turned red. Saliva was already dripping from the corner of his mouth, but it was sucked back in by him. This old fellow hadn't even used the level 23 Emperor's treasure pill that he had just obtained not long ago. When he heard about the Emperor's treasure pill, he actually started thinking about it again. His face was full of smiles as he immediately swung his hooves and rushed to Yi Xian's side. He rubbed his hind legs against the space-violent ape. "Boss, what are you saying? Is this old cow that kind of cow? Don't worry, the mission boss gave me will definitely be completed perfectly." "Oh right, boss, are you going to collect the materials to refine the Emperor-level treasure pill this time? This is a big matter, we must not delay, hurry up and leave. This old cow will send this batch of treasure pills back to the Phoenix Bloodstar region as soon as possible. Stay there and wait for you to refine the Emperor-level treasure. Bring the pill back when it's done." Moo! As soon as he finished speaking, the old fellow seemed as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He raised his head and let out a long howl in excitement. He didn't stay any longer. He raised his 4 hooves and in the blink of an eye, he was already far away in the direction of Phoenix Bloodstar region. The most dangerous place along the way was the Behemoth Forbidden Land, but now the Behemoth Forbidden Land had already become history. With the Green Cow's 2nd stage Emperor cultivation, it was impossible for it to be in any danger. Therefore Yi Xian was not worried at all. Seeing him leave, he did not hesitate and turned around to rush towards the Rising Sun Forbidden Land that was 1,000,000,000 miles away. After spending a few more days, Yi Xian successfully returned to the star region where he had triggered the system title mission. Along the way, he still did not see the Netherworld furnace, which made him feel uneasy, but there was nothing he could do. Although the main purpose of coming to the Rising Sun Forbidden Land this time was to investigate the whereabouts of the Netherworld furnace, but now, although he did not see the Netherworld furnace, he unexpectedly triggered a system title mission. As such, Yi Xian could only temporarily put the matter of the Netherworld furnace aside. After that, he decided to complete the system title mission that had been triggered first. Otherwise, if he stayed in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land for too long, the system title mission that had been triggered had passed the time limit, and automatically judged that Yi Xian had failed to complete the mission. That would be a big waste. These thoughts flashed through his mind. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. He completely put the matter of the Netherworld furnace aside and no longer thought about it. Then, he turned his head and glanced at a remote void on his right. There were only a few dozen abandoned stars in that void that had long since lost their light and heat. In an inconspicuous corner behind 2 abandoned stars, there was a void crack that was only a few 100 meters wide. Because this kind of void crack could be encountered from time to time in the void, and because the one on the back of the 2 abandoned stars didn't emit too much energy, it was very inconspicuous. If it were not for the system prompt that the system title mission this time was to enter this so-called star vortex to complete, Yi Xian would not have paid any attention to it. Such a small and ordinary void crack is actually called a star vortex by the system. This really makes me speechless. After staring at this void crack for a long time, Yi Xian could not see any clues. However, the system would not be wrong. He was very sure of this. Everything in the past had already proved it. Muttering softly, Yi Xian did not hesitate anymore. His figure flashed and directly rushed into this void crack. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared completely. Almost at the same moment that he entered this void crack, the familiar system prompt sounded in Yixian's mind. The system did not specify the specific content of the system title mission before, saying that he had to wait until he entered the star vortex. Chapter 4338. As Yixian resolutely entered the so-called star vortex designated by the system, the familiar system notification sounded in his mind again. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Successfully activated the system title exploration mission. If the exploration is successful, there is a chance of upgrading the system title. System current title. Level 5 Interstellar Raider. System next title. Level 6 Interstellar Controller. Interstellar Controller. This title comes with a halo effect. On the basis of the previous 5 levels of titles, Interstellar Traveler, Interstellar Adventurer, Interstellar Explorer, Interstellar Pathfinder, and Interstellar Raider, a brand new system ability will be added. Activated. At the same time, the number of interstellar coordinates imprinted on any universe plane will increase from the previous 2 to 3. System Mission Exploration Mission Requirements. Find a nest of chaos sources, enter it, split a strand of your primordial spirit, and use the doppelganger system to refine it into a primordial spirit seed. Plant it in the nest of chaos sources and begin the path to the birth of a chaos demon god. Punishment for exploration mission failure. The system title will be downgraded by 1 level. Boom! As the system notification sounded this time, Yixian's mind instantly exploded with a roar. He was completely stunned and his eyes widened as if he had just been struck by lightning. Chaos Demon God? It actually asked him to split a strand of his primordial spirit, use the doppelganger system to refine it into a primordial spirit seed, and plant it in the nest of chaos sources to begin the path to the birth of a chaos demon god? What kind of joke was this? This was simply too frightening. Yixian naturally understood the literal meaning of the system's requirements. It could even be said that there was no difficulty in implementing it at all. His devouring doppelganger was condensed from the doppelganger system attached to the system. However, it was obviously different this time. Although it was essentially refining a doppelganger, this doppelganger's level was too high and its background was too great. Although he did not know what this nest of chaos sources was, if he thought about the chaos demon god, he could basically conclude that it should be the core of a certain special star. Moreover, there was clearly more than one nest of chaos sources, which was consistent with the legends. According to the legends, there were a total of 3,000 great paths in the world, each of which could prove the great path. The 3,000 chaos demon gods were innate gods born from the 3,000 laws of the great paths. Each chaos demon god had a kind of law. In other words, chaos demon gods were born from the great paths. Even the legendary Pangu, who created the world and started the primeval age, seemed to be one of the 3,000 chaos fiend gods. In other words, these so-called 3,000 chaos demon gods were actually born before the start of the Great Desolate Era. Now that Yixian had suddenly encountered such a system title quest, it actually allowed him to find a nest of chaos in this mysterious void. Furthermore, he had placed a strand of his nascent soul seed into it, and used it to nurture a chaos demon god. This undoubtedly proved that the primordial world was indeed coming. They were chaos fiend gods, existences at the same level as Pangu, who created the world and started the primeval age. If he could really get a share of the pie from the 3,000 chaos fiend gods and refine one of them into his fiend god incarnation, he would be able to do so. At that time, Yixian would be so powerful that even the primeval age's heavenly Tao might not be able to match him. This sounds too inconceivable, but now that the system's title quest has been activated, no matter what, there's no way out. No matter what, let's try to find this so-called nest of chaos first. After a wave of emotions, Yixian gradually calmed down. His eyes flickered with a bright light as he quickly made a decision. As for whether or not to split a strand of his primordial spirit and enter that place as requested by the system, he will occupy the nest and occupy 3,000. Refining one of the chaos fiend gods into my fiend god incarnation is a matter for the future. Once I find the chaos nest, I'll decide based on the situation. However, it would not be easy to find this so-called chaos nest. Even if there were 3,000 similar places, Yixian only needed to find one. After all, this was a 6th-level title quest. How could it not be difficult? It would be strange if it could be completed easily. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian subconsciously looked around. Just now, when he first entered this place from the star vortex, the specific details of this 6th-level title quest immediately rang in his mind, attracting Yi Xian's attention. Therefore, he did not pay attention to his surroundings. At this moment, when he looked around, half of his heart immediately turned cold. After entering this place, Yi Xian no longer deliberately concealed and suppressed his cultivation base. He had returned to the regal immortal realm. However, now, even as he extended his powerful regal immortal realm consciousness to its limit, he still could not find anything. Even if it was a small abandoned planet, this void was pitch black with nothing at all. Not to mention a single abandoned star. Not even a speck of cosmic dust could be found. Not to mention that the void crack that entered this place was so small that no one would pay special attention to it. Even if some forbidden area's fierce beasts entered this place, it was estimated that after casually walking around, they would immediately leave without hesitation. It was simply, there was no value. However, the system notification wouldn't be wrong. What's more, in such a vast universe space there was nothing at all. Even an emperor's powerful spirit sense wouldn't be able to sense anything, not even a small abandoned star. However, it was only a matter of time before the system notification would be wrong. Just this point alone was extremely abnormal. This was enough to prove that there was something strange about this place. Thinking about this, Yi Xian immediately became spirited. As long as the system's title quest wasn't wrong, then there was nothing to worry about. Back then, before he entered the void of the great desolate world fragment, Yi Xian had been wandering alone in that dark void for several years. At most, he would just have to revise that feeling again. After adjusting his state of mind, he did not hesitate anymore. He immediately raised his head and roared, directly activating the bloodline ability of the 9 Devil Ape transformation. 9 Devil Ape transformation, 6th transformation. As the furious roar sounded out, the power within Yi Xian's body instantly surged like a raging river. His limbs and bones surged with an endless amount of ruthlessness, and a terrifying blood and chi energy that caused one's hair to stand on end gushed out from his body. In the blink of an eye, his body, which was originally only 30 meters tall, rapidly expanded like a balloon that was being blown up at an extremely fast speed. In less than 3 breaths he had already reached a height of 10 million meters, like a human-shaped star. Moreover, at the same time that the violent ape's body expanded, the cultivation aura that was emitted from its body also expanded. When the enormous 6th transformation appeared, the cultivation aura that was emitted from the violent ape's body had shockingly reached the terrifying level of the Emperor. 6th level decay. Chapter 4339. Whoosh! A sharp piercing sound rang out as a ray of light shot past. It was extremely dazzling in this empty void. However, it was so fast that it disappeared from sight in the blink of an eye. This light that was like an arrow was Yi Xian. Currently, he was in the 6th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. The cultivation aura emanating from his body had reached the 6th stage of the Emperor Immortal Realm. His speed was so fast that it was simply shocking. Even so, Yi Xian maintained this extreme speed and fixed on a fixed direction. From time to time he would use all his strength to teleport. However, a month had passed, and he still hadn't found anything in this empty dark void. As a peak mid-stage Emperor Immortal, the distance that he had left behind in the starry sky had exceeded the distance between the Forbidden Land of the beaming Forbidden Land and the Forbidden Land of the rising sun. However, along the way, Yi Xian became more and more disappointed. During this month he hadn't even seen a speck of cosmic dust on this abandoned star. It was as if this was an endless empty void, an eternal slumber in the darkness. After another 2 days, just as he was getting more and more impatient, a star finally appeared in front of him at the end of the void in front of him. This star was huge, surpassing the largest giant star Yi Xian had ever seen. Although it didn't have an atmosphere, and the surface of the star seemed to be full of rock formations, there wasn't a single trace of vegetation or even water. However, Yi Xian was able to discern something. From the interior of this star, he clearly captured a wisp of faint life aura. After flying in this empty void for a month, suddenly seeing a star was already extremely delightful. However, this star actually had a faint life aura, which was very likely what he was looking for. The so-called nest of chaos origins. Thinking of this, Yixian was so excited that he almost raised his head and laughed. Just as he was about to burst out at full speed and fly closer to this star to examine it carefully, a familiar throbbing suddenly came from somewhere in front of his left chest. Yixian was stunned. Then he subconsciously lowered his head to look at his left chest. With a single glance, he didn't discover anything. Only then did he remember that he was now a colossal monster. The headless infant corpse's corpse had transformed into a corpse lamp imprint on his left chest that was only the size of 2 fingers. Under such a huge body, it was as if it would be strange if he could see it. Without any hesitation, Yixian dispelled the 9 transformations of the demonic ape 9 transformations. He even released himself from the ancient demonic ape true body state and returned to his human form. Therefore, his cultivation base dropped rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he had dropped to the 8th level of Emperor. As his cultivation base dropped, the giant star in front of him disappeared instantly because it was too far away. It had already exceeded the limit of what an Emperor's spirit sense could reach. But it didn't matter. Even if he couldn't detect it, the star was still in the same place. He couldn't run away. He could reach it in 2 days at most. And now, Yixian was most concerned about the throbbing of the corpse lamp tattoo on his chest. This most likely meant that the headless infant corpse that had been in a deep slumber had awakened again. This was definitely good news. Thinking back, the headless infant corpse had been in a deep slumber for almost 10 years. Now that it had suddenly awakened, there was bound to be a surprise. This was Yixian's intuition, and it made him very excited. At this moment, as he returned to his human form, the corpse tattoo on his chest appeared again. It was clearly emitting a blazing light, and an extremely mysterious aura spread out from it. Before Yixian could react, the corpse lamp tattoo on his chest became extremely hot. Then with a flash of light, the corpse lamp tattoo on the left side of Yixian's chest disappeared. A figure appeared in the void 1,000 feet in front of him. It was a nascent soul. It was a headless infant corpse the size of a child, with blood tattoos all over its body. It was headless, but it was carrying a baby's head in its arms. Damn, you're finally awake. Do you know how many years you've been sleeping? Seeing that the headless infant corpse had indeed awakened, and this time it seemed to be taking the initiative to appear directly in front of him, Yixian was wild with joy. He asked on the spot, "Also, what is your current level of cultivation?" Was the truth of the primordial war as the Black Ox said? That you were a man-made heavenly Tao created by those primordial beings known as demons? This is the Hongmeng Void? 1,000 feet in front of him, the headless infant corpse that had suddenly awakened didn't care about Yixian at all. It didn't seem to have the slightest intention of responding to his barrage of questions. At this moment, the eyes of the baby's head in its arms had already opened. 2 rays of blood-red light shot out, but it didn't look at Yixian. Instead, it followed the body of the headless infant corpse that was carrying the head and scanned the surrounding dark void. Wait. Although the baby's head's mouth did not move, an extremely young voice suddenly sounded in the void. However, the voice sounded old and even old. You are indeed a living being with the destiny of the primordial world. You are actually really a living being with the destiny of the primordial world. You actually found this place. The you here was obviously referring to Yixian. Although the headless infant corpse spoke without rhyme or reason, Yixian still heard some information from it. From his words, in the void of the ancient cage fragment that was connected to the Forbidden Valley of the Devil Emperor planet, the headless infant corpse was certain that Yixian was brought out by him. There was a reason why it hadn't left after that. There was indeed a reason. And this reason was that as early as that time, the headless infant corpse had used some unknown method to see that Yixian was a creature with the aura of the primordial world. He might have relied on this to determine that Yixian would definitely find this so-called primordial void in the future, so he had been clinging to Yixian and refused to leave. Right now, there might be an incomprehensible force that made Yixian unexpectedly come to this primordial void. Therefore, the headless infant corpse that had been sleeping with a corpse lamp tattoo on his left chest had been sensing the unique aura of the primordial world. After sensing the unique aura of the primordial void, it began to struggle free from its slumber. Now it had completely awakened. These thoughts flashed through Yixian's mind. He was stunned for a moment and then his face turned pale. He immediately became nervous. I say, big brother. Don't tell me you want to run away alone after achieving your goal? If that's the case, then it's too unkind. For you, this Star Lord has offended primeval heaven's eye. You can run away casually, but this Star Lord has a family. You can run away. But you can't run away from the temple. Chapter 4340. 8th Stage Regal Immortal? The speed of cultivation strength advancement is barely passable, but it's still too weak. As Yi Xian's slightly anxious voice sounded, the bloody eyes of the baby head in the headless baby corpse's arms finally moved slowly and finally landed on Yi Xian, locking onto him. After sizing him up a few times, that extremely strange, tender and ancient voice sounded again at this moment. However, since you have the primordial providence, then one of the 3,000 chaos demon gods must belong to you. Although it's a little weak now, once the natal demon god awakens in the future, your cultivation strength will skyrocket. You will be qualified to participate in the final battle. F*CK. So this is what the so-called primordial providence is referring to? Upon hearing this, Yi Xian's eyes widened on the spot, and he gasped. Previously, when he accepted the system's title quest, the headless infant's corpse hadn't woken up yet, so he most likely didn't know the specific mission of the system's title quest. It was to let Yi Xian find a nest of primal chaos, and split off a strand of his primordial spirit to enter it. Occupy one of the 3,000 chaos demon gods and refine it into one of his doppelgangers. However, at this moment, the headless baby corpse still said something similar. This was definitely not a coincidence. The only explanation was that the so-called primordial providence that the headless baby corpse had mentioned earlier was, in fact, to occupy a seat among the chaos demon gods. Furthermore, from what he had just said, there was definitely going to be a final battle between the headless infant corpse and the primordial heavenly Tao. This battle was in fact a continuation of the primordial war that had destroyed the entire primordial world. The battle back then was so tragic that the entire untainted land world was shattered, and both sides suffered countless casualties. Even the Void Tortoise, the Golden Divine Dragon, and the desolate ancient Yaksha, who were supreme existences of the remote antiquity, were seriously injured and died. They had died. But in fact, the leaders of the two sides in that battle, namely the headless baby corpse and the primeval heaven's eye, had not died. Now, after countless years of dormancy and recovery, the headless infant corpse and the primordial green eye of the heavenly Tao had both awakened. So, as the final result of that incomparable battle in the primordial era, this final battle after countless years was destined. It was coming. Perhaps, the day when the primordial world fully descended would be the moment this battle officially began. If that was really the case, Yi Xian obviously did not have much time. The activities of the netherworld furnace were getting more and more frequent and strange, which made him feel a heavy sense of urgency. Although the headless baby corpse said that once he refined one of the 3,000 chaos demon gods into his doppelganger, once the chaos demon god that had been refined into his doppelganger awakened, Yi Xian's cultivation strength would instantly skyrocket, and it was very likely even paragons of the primordial era such as the Void Tortoise, the Golden Divine Dragon, and the primordial Yaksha were qualified to participate in the final battle. But who knew how long it would take for a chaos demon god to be born? It was obvious that this time would not be short. Yi Xian was afraid that before he could wait until then, the primeval heavens I would suddenly activate, causing the primordial world that had long collapsed to completely descend into this world. Thinking of this, Yi Xian could not sit still. He was not in the mood to pay attention to the headless baby corpse in front of him, who was always talking to him. With a flash of his body, he flew in the direction of the giant star that he had just probed and shot forward at an extremely fast speed. Although he was not in a hurry, in his opinion, the birth of the Chaos Demon God was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. Besides, there was still a system title mission pressing down on his head. As long as he entered the core of the giant star in front of him, found the so-called nest of chaos, and split out a strand of his primordial spirit, he would enter that place and occupy the nest. One of the 3,000 chaos demon gods would be refined into his doppelganger. Then, no matter when this chaos demon god that had been refined into a doppelganger would wake up, whether it could wake up before the primordial world completely descended into this world, at least for now, Yi Xian's 6th system title mission could finally be completed. It was done. This was a real benefit. How could he miss it just like that? The star in front of us is indeed a nest of primal chaos. In the depths of its core, there is a chaos demon god being nurtured. As Yixian's figure shot out, the headless corpse behind him spoke in a tender and aged voice once again. However, the aura of this nest of primal chaos is too weak. The chaos demon god that is born is destined not to be able to survive. Too powerful and not suitable for you at all. There should be 3,000 similar nests of chaos in the primordial void. What you need is the most powerful nest. It's said that in the distant past, before the primordial age had even begun, a chaos lotus grew in an unknown place in the primordial void. The chaos lotus continuously absorbed chaos chi from its surroundings, gradually forming a giant storm of chi that flashed with dazzling light from time to time. In the end, the lotus exploded, and 3,000 streaks of light shot out, transforming into 3,000 stars. At the core of each star was a nest of chaos that nurtured a chaos life form, the so-called chaos demon gods. However, there were differences in strength between the 3,000 nests of chaos, and the chaos demon gods that were nurtured represented different laws of the Great Tao. There are 3,000 laws in the chaos, which are also known as the 3,000 Great Taos. Among them, the masters of the top 10 laws are all extremely powerful existences. The top 10 laws are the laws of strength, the laws of time, the laws of space, the laws of chaos, the laws of immortal Tao, the laws of demon Tao, the laws of life, the laws of the five elements, the laws of yin and yang, and the laws of destruction. Back then, demon god Pangu, who created the world in the primordial void and ushered in the primordial age, walked out of the number 1 nest of chaos. He mastered the number 1 law of the top 10, the supreme law of the primordial age. It was the law of strength. Once the law of strength is mastered, it can create a new world and reach the Great Tao. Crimson light flashed in the headless baby corpse's eyes as it scanned Yixian from head to toe. You're different from me. I belong to the primordial age and am branded with the aura of the primordial age. I can't change my fate in the primordial age. Chapter 43-41. The law of strength? You want me to be Pangu? Yixian was shocked. He hurriedly waved his hands. There's no room for discussion. What's so good about creating a new world? Pangu didn't have a good ending. In the end, he sacrificed himself. That's just something that happened in the previous primordial era. The infant corpse shook his head. A look of disdain appeared on his face. Every primordial era is different. The will of the Great Tao and I are already in the past. Now he's only struggling to steal the primordial luck of this primordial era, but all of this is destined to be futile. Fugong, you have a wisp of primordial luck. This new primordial luck of this primordial era is destined to be written by you. In the previous primordial era, it was Pangu who obtained the law of strength. Why can't it be you, Yixian, in this primordial era? Pangu chose to create a new world and start the Great Tao, but your choice is up to you. The prerequisite is that you have to have enough power after this primordial era begins. Only then will you have the right to speak. Otherwise, in the previous primordial era, even if there were 3,000 chaos demon gods, who knew how many of them would have died when Pangu created the new world? Before that, they would have died early. It's rare that you're in a primordial era, and you happen to have a wisp of primordial luck of this primordial era. You don't want to die early at the beginning of a new primordial era like some of the chaos demon gods in the previous primordial era, right? That makes sense. I don't know what to say. Yixian was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at the headless infant corpse and murmured, if that's the case, I really have to be the strongest one among the 3,000 chaos demon gods who controls the law of strength. Otherwise, I'm destined to be bullied by others. That's the logic. Go find other layers of chaos. When you can sense the aura of violent energy, you can stop. After saying that, the headless infant corpse's figure flashed, and it was about to shoot toward Yixian. It was clear that after nagging for a while, it was going to return to Yixian's left chest as a corpse lantern tattoo and lay dormant there. Wait a minute. Yixian's eyebrows twitched as he subconsciously raised his hand to cover his left chest. He even turned his body sideways as if he was trying to avoid something. Regardless of whether this was useful or not, it was indeed a conditioned reflex. Action. It wasn't that he didn't want to let the baby's corpse return. Yixian and he were already in the same boat. The problem was that this child was too used to being a hands-off boss. He had been in a deep sleep for so long, and now that he had finally woken up, he just casually nagged a little. She wanted to rush back to sleep. Why do we have to do all the hard and tiring work? Thinking of this, Yixian's face immediately fell. He rolled his eyes and said in annoyance, "We are now in a cooperative relationship." "No, we have always been in a cooperative relationship. But don't you think that I am always the one causing trouble? You sure slept well. It was not easy for you to wake up this time. Can't you at least take care of something? How many years have you been tormenting yourself?" "I've been preparing for this ever since the great battle in the primordial era." Yixian's resentment was deep, but the headless corpse of an infant was enough to make him lose his temper with just one sentence. Thinking about it, how many years had he been tormenting himself? Since the headless infant corpse had not fallen in that battle and lived to this day, how could it not have made any arrangements? After that incomparable battle that destroyed the entire untainted world, the headless infant corpse and the green eye of the heavenly way of the untainted land had never faced each other head-on. However, both parties were definitely secretly making all kinds of arrangements and planning everything. It was all for the final battle that was bound to come in the future. For example, the netherworld furnace and the source of all evil, the void giant turtle. The former was the arrangement of the primeval heaven's eye, and the latter was obviously related to the headless infant corpse. That was a primeval supreme who had lived from the primordial age to this day. After being rescued by Yixian, he immediately disappeared. If there was no accident, this was one of the arrangements of the headless infant corpse. It was just that Yixian was not at that level yet. He was not qualified to know. In fact, even if he told him, it would be useless. At most, he would hear something new and feel happy and sad. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt embarrassed. He rubbed his left hand in front of his chest a few times, and put it down with a smile. He asked tentatively, "By the way, except for Boss Turtle, the supreme remote antiquity under your command is still alive now. How many? Where did they go? Including the golden godly dragon and the primeval yaksha? They are all related to me." "It is not time for you to know this yet. When you become a Universe Supreme, you will naturally understand the arrangements." Universe Supreme. Damn, that is still far away. Yixian rolled his eyes. After the Undying Emperor, there were 5 more great realms. Universe Knight, Universe Master, Universe Supreme, the Primeval Supreme, and the Primeval Supreme. The so-called supreme beings of the universe were actually great beings of the quasi-primordial era. Yixian hadn't even reached the level of emperor yet, let alone the 5 great realms behind him. He didn't know how long it would take for him to reach that level. Or find the ancestral star and enter it. Then I will let you know a part of the arrangements. Without waiting for Yixian to continue muttering, the headless infant corpse's soft and ancient voice sounded out once again. Back then, during the primordial war, the entire great desolate world collapsed. However, the ancestral star wasn't affected much and was affected by a strand of primordial energy. If I'm not mistaken, the ancestral star should be in the primordial chaos. I'm not the only one looking for it. Back then, my great enemy did the same. You have a strand of primordial chaos karmic luck. Entering the primordial chaos space, you're destined to receive the blessing of the primordial chaos grand Tao. Goo, perhaps the ancestral star will be found in your hands. Who knows? What? The ancestral star is here? Yixian's eyes instantly widened as he cried out involuntarily. This news was too shocking, and it made him feel even more surprised. At the same time that he cried out in alarm, his breathing also quickened. He had always suspected that this so-called ancestral planet was the planet where he was born. According to the description of the ancestral star, more than 70% of the ancestral star was an ocean. Looking from the universe void, it was a sea of blue. This was exactly the same as Yixian's ancestral star. He had no idea how many years had passed since he left the ancestral star and accidentally arrived at the 9-heaven star. If the ancestral star was really the ancestral star, he wondered if the flow of time there was the same as the outside world. Chapter 43-42. By the time Yixian recovered from his momentary absent-mindedness, the headless corpse in front of him had already disappeared. Looking down, a sinister and strange corpse lamp tattoo had appeared on his left chest. He was speechless. After all, the headless infant corpse only chatted with him for a while after waking up, but in the end, it fell into a deep slumber again. To put it bluntly, he still had to rely on himself to deal with this mess outside. After rolling his eyes and sighing, Yixian activated the devil ape bloodline in his body again, and transformed into the star-violent ape form. In this way, his cultivation base rose to the peak of the 9th rank of Regal Immortal, which was half of the 9th rank of Regal Immortal. Regal Immortal. In this state, he had the cultivation base of a half-emperor. His speed was satisfactory, and his body was only 30 meters tall. It was the most suitable. After adjusting his state of mind, Yixian temporarily tossed the matter of the ancestral star to the back of his mind. His body swayed, and in an instant, he transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the void in front of him. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Previously, Yixian had used his 6th devil ape form to explore with all his strength. At that time, his cultivation base was at the 6th rank of Regal Immortal, and his divine sense was much stronger than it was now. That was why he was able to detect the giant star in the void ahead. Now, no matter how much he extended his divine sense, he couldn't capture the shadow of the giant star at all. However, he had locked on to its location. After traveling at full speed for more than half a day, Yixian finally arrived in front of the enormous star. He didn't enter it, but instead stood in the air, staring at it with a strange expression as he carefully examined it. This was the first star that Yixian had discovered since entering this vast and boundless primordial chaos. To be more precise, it should be the only other matter that he'd discovered besides himself and this dark void. To be honest, Yixian really didn't want to give it up. He didn't even want to leave. Because once they left this place, who knew when they would be able to find another similar chaos nest? If there were no mishaps, there were as many as 3,000 nests of chaos in the primordial chaos void, which contained a chaos fiend god seed within the star core. That was not a small number. However, when these 3,000 nests of chaos were placed in a seemingly boundless expanse of dark space, this amount was far, far too few. It was simply insignificant. Even a drop in the ocean could be considered an optimistic estimate. At this moment, Yixian really had an impulse to enter the core of the star in front of him and split out a strand of his primordial spirit to occupy that place. He wanted to take over one of the 3,000 chaos demon gods and turn it into his doppelganger. This way, at least the title quest that was still in progress could be completed smoothly, and the punishment after failure could be avoided. Yixian did not want to lose the big picture for a small gain. In the end, after hesitating and pacing back and forth, he gritted his teeth and left. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the end of the void and was never seen again. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 years, although Yixian's cultivation base had improved, his original body's cultivation base had remained at rank 8 Regal Immortal. For 2 whole years he hadn't broken through even once. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he simply didn't have the time. During these 2 years, Yixian hadn't stopped at all. He had been wandering around the boundless primordial chaos void. By now, he had gained some understanding of this dark void. As a matter of fact, there weren't just 3,000 layers of chaos origins that nurtured a chaos fiend god seed in the chaos void. During these 2 years, Yixian had also seen many ordinary stars. There were abandoned stars that didn't emit light or heat, blazing stars, and even some stars with life. However, most of them were plant life forms. Even if there were flesh and blood life forms, they were still alive. Their level of life forms was very low, and they didn't have intelligence. The reason he'd mistakenly believed that the primordial chaos void only had 3,000 nests of chaos was because he'd only been in it for a short period of time, and he'd been to far too few regions. Moreover, the primordial chaos void was so vast that it made one's hair stand on end. In addition to these ordinary stars with life and abandoned stars, Yixian had seen more than a dozen chaos nests in the past 2 years. Without exception, all of them were enormous stars. This was almost a common feature of all chaos nests. Yixian had seen many of them and gradually figured out the trick. Now, even if he was far away in the primordial chaos void, as long as he could detect it with his divine sense, he could tell at a glance whether a star in the primordial chaos void was an ordinary star or had a chaos fiend god seed inside its core. A chaos fiend god seed's chaos fiend god seed, unfortunately, The laws of Great Tao in the dozen chaos nests that he had found in the past 2 years were not the supreme laws that Yixian wanted. They were the laws of strength that Pengu had obtained after the beginning of the last primordial chaos era. However, the aura of energy emitted from a few chaos nests was extremely powerful, far more powerful than the aura of the first chaos nests that Yixian had discovered in this primordial chaos void back then. During those few times, Yixian was tempted again and almost gave up on the decision to continue searching for nests of the laws of strength. However, in the end, he gritted his teeth and persevered. With strong reluctance, he turned around and left those chaos nests. It was a path of exploration that he didn't even know if it would lead to any results. It had already been 2 months since he last discovered a nest of chaos origins. In the past 2 months, Yixian hadn't found a single chaos nest. This probability was lower than the average of finding more than a dozen chaos nests in the past 2 years. The cycle was over. Therefore, he couldn't help but feel a little uneasy in his heart. These thoughts of worrying about personal gains and losses would appear in his mind from time to time in the past 2 days. It was also at this moment that Yixian's powerful divine sense detected a huge star in the distant primordial chaos void. It was projected into his mind. A single glance was all it took for him to confirm that this giant star was a new nest of chaos origins. However, he couldn't be sure what kind of laws of primordial chaos it contained, or whether it was the laws of strength. Because it was too far away, he had to get close to it in order to sense it. Without any hesitation, Yixian immediately moved at his maximum speed. His figure turned into a streak of light that shot toward the direction he had locked onto. Chapter 43-43. When the Wild Dragon battleship had first fallen into Yixian's hands, it had only been a small star fortress with a diameter of 5,000 meters. It was the masterpiece of humanity's technological pioneer Xingbo, the culmination of his blood and sweat. When Xingbo had first created the Wild Dragon battleship, it had only been the size of a chicken egg. However, this chicken egg was made up of an entire swarm of world insects. The swarm of world insects was a mysterious substance that existed between life and non-life forms. For example, the legendary Taisui fungus was such a thing. Of course, although the swarm of world insects and the Taisui fungus were theoretically the same substance, in reality, it was on a much higher level. There was simply no comparison. This could be deduced from its name. The swarm of world insects could slowly grow. As long as there was enough energy to allow this swarm of world insects to reproduce, even Xingbo himself didn't know what kind of state it would eventually reach. When it had first fallen into Yixian's hands, it had been a small star fortress with a diameter of 5,000 meters. Moreover, due to a lack of energy, the entire swarm of world insects had fallen into a deep slumber. Not only did it not continue to grow, but it was also unable to repair itself. Afterwards, Yixian had found the energy required for the swarm of world insects. This had allowed the swarm of world insects to rapidly grow. Step by step, they had grown from a large star fortress to a small star fortress, and then to a large star fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. This was not the end. After the last supply of energy, the Wild Dragon spaceship grew from 100,000 meters in diameter to more than 160,000 meters in a short period of time, which was 500,000 meters in diameter. Converted to kilometers, this was 500 kilometers. It was like a miniature star. This terrifying size was not much different from the Tianji city, the headquarters of the Tianji clan. It was absolutely astonishing. Even its shape had changed from its previous spherical shape to its current oblate shape. It was more suitable for galloping through the universe, because it was even faster. In addition, compared to the last evolution not long ago, the life giant plug was now many times larger than before. Due to the use of the space folding technology, its internal space had also been significantly improved. The view inside was very broad, as if it was an independent heavenly grotto with mountains and rivers. It was impossible to tell that this was the interior of a star fortress. This was only one of the 18 layers of the fortress. Every level had different sceneries and different uses. At present, the Long Yi Hao, which had grown into a giant fortress in space, contained only 20,000 demons led by Gui Hai Dao and Song Qingyu, apart from 1,000,000 fortresses of various sizes controlled by countless intelligent robots. A scout. These 20,000 demon scouts were currently in deep slumber, cultivating. Calculating the time, Yixian had not seen them for several years. The reason why he hadn't provided the giant life fortress with energy for so long was because the world insects that formed the giant life fortress needed the energy to reproduce and grow. It was actually obtained from the eggs of the evil spirit slime. Yixian did indeed have a mother nest of the evil spirit slime. It was originally in the bottom cabin of the Black Wind ship, but it had now been moved to the bottom cabin of the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress. Unfortunately, the Long Yi Hao is now too big. Although this mother nest of the evil spirit slime could continuously produce new eggs, the special energy it contained was only enough to maintain the daily operations of the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress. There was still a little surplus under the premise of operating. This surplus energy was stored. Although the total amount accumulated over time was considerable, it was basically enough to allow the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress to undergo another major evolution. However, Yixian did not choose to do so previously. This was because the energy required to form the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress was too special. At present, he had not found a replacement energy source. Therefore, Yixian had to leave a certain amount of reserve energy. Otherwise, if an unforeseen accident happened, the Long Yi Hao would definitely settle down. It was because of these reasons that the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress had been in its current state for many years. It had not continued to evolve. Yixian was also very helpless about this. However, today, when he discovered that the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress in his undying world suddenly trembled for no reason, Yixian suddenly had a flash of inspiration. A very strange premonition surged in his heart. The problem of the Long Yi Hao's giant life fortress evolving again could be solved. Perhaps it could be solved immediately. In fact, even the problem of the future energy supply of the giant life fortress's giant life fortress was the same. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yixian did not hesitate any longer. His figure flashed, and he used his extreme speed to rush towards the giant star in the void in front of him. The reason why the giant life fortress's giant life fortress's giant life fortress's giant life fortress's giant life fortress must have something to do with this giant star. More accurately speaking, it should have something to do with the nest of chaos in the star's core. If he was not mistaken, the energy contained in the nest of chaos was what the countless tiny world bugs in the world bug community needed. And it wasn't just a normal need, it was a crazed desire. At the very least, the countless tiny world worms that spawned from the world worms had never reacted so shockingly to the energy within the eggs of the slime wraith mother nest. If all these speculations were true, Yixian would not hesitate at all. He would definitely seize all the special energy resources contained in the core of the giant star in front of him. Even if it meant killing a future Chaos Demon God, he wouldn't hesitate. After all, the Chaos Demon God wasn't his subordinate and was still in the process of being nurtured. Right now it was most likely just a seed of life, so it didn't matter if it was destroyed. With this thought in mind, Yixian quickly arrived at the vicinity of the giant planet. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly charged towards the surface of the planet. Whoosh! An incomparably sharp sound pierced through the air. Yixian's figure was like a meteor, rushing toward the surface of the planet at an astonishing speed. He did not stop at all. With a loud bang, he smashed a huge crater on the surface of the planet, but his figure was not damaged. He was not damaged at all, but his speed did not decrease. In just a few breaths, he had already rushed into the core of the giant star. Chapter 43-44. What appeared before his eyes was a dazzling world. The core of this gigantic star was filled with all kinds of pure crystals that emitted dazzling light. As soon as Yixian rushed into the star core, a familiar system notification sounded in his mind. Before he entered the star core, he did not come into contact with the various crystals contained in the star core. Therefore, the system notification did not appear. However, as soon as Yixian entered the star core, not only did the devouring system in his body immediately send out all kinds of notifications, asking if he should immediately start collecting them, even the system's information database contained information and data related to these energy crystals. All of them were updated at the same time. There were so many that it was numbing to hearing them. Yixian did not know which Chaos Demon God was being nurtured in this nest of chaos origins. Regarding this, the system did not send out any notifications, and the information database could not be searched either. He could not even see anything that resembled the life seed of a demon god in the star core. Even when he used the powerful divine sense of an emperor to investigate in detail, it was still the same. The entire star core was filled with all kinds of dazzling and colorful energy crystals. There was nothing else. Perhaps the life seed of the chaos demon god being nurtured in this nest of chaos origins had not even appeared yet. Perhaps it had already died in the womb and dissipated, who knew? Yixian was not interested in paying attention to it at all. At this moment, his entire mind was completely occupied by the various kinds of pure energy crystals that could be seen everywhere in this nest of chaos origins. This star was a nest of chaos origins. It was extremely huge. Even the largest natural celestial body in the three main dimensions of the universe was not as big as it. Therefore, the diameter of this star core was also shocking. Just the diameter of this star core alone was comparable to that of a meteor. And this star core with a diameter comparable to that of a meteor was filled with energy crystals of all kinds of colors. There were more than 100 kinds in total. As soon as Yixian rushed into the star core, the familiar system notification sounded in his mind continuously. It did not stop for a few minutes. For a few minutes, the system would give a notification for every kind of energy crystal. More than 100 kinds one could imagine. In the end, Yixian couldn't be bothered to listen to it anymore. He allowed it to play as he began to get busy. These 100 or so types of energy crystals were all top-grade resources. After all, they were resources from a chaos locus in the primordial chaos void. How bad could they be? Yixian couldn't be bothered to figure out the uses of most of the energy crystals. With a wave of his hand, they all turned into dazzling rays of light and were stored in his undying world. Just like that, after working for nearly 2 hours, most of the energy crystals that could be ignored for the time being were finally collected. In the blink of an eye, more than 90% of the enormous planet core had been emptied. There were only 5 energy crystals of different colors that Yixian had purposely left behind. These 5 types of energy crystals were exactly what the 4 Great Starry Skies battle armors needed to upgrade and reforge them. The extra purple crystal was the source of the mysterious energy that made the world's insects crazy. There were a lot of these 5 types of energy crystals, especially the purple crystal that the world's insects needed. Without any hesitation, Yixian left behind 10,000 of these 5 types of energy crystals and stored them in his undying world in case he needed them in the future. With a wave of his hand, whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh, the densely packed sound of air breaking continued to ring out, and it lasted for a few minutes. After a few minutes, all of the purple crystals were collected by Yixian and stored in his undying world in the undying world. With this huge amount of purple energy crystals, not only would the undying world undergo a brand new transformation and evolution, the problem of energy supply in the future would also be completely solved. However, Yixian had to figure out how to use this batch of mysterious purple energy crystals. Otherwise, if there was no limit, the world's insects would continue to absorb the energy from the purple crystals and continue to reproduce and evolve. This would continue until all of the purple energy crystals were used up. In order to prevent such a situation from happening, Yixian sent all of the remaining purple energy crystals into the second layer of the undying world's undying world and immediately gave a command. This huge amount of purple energy crystals was divided into 2 equal portions. One portion was sealed in the storage and used as the energy source and storage source of the undying world's undying world. The other portion was to be distributed to the entire world's insects, allowing them to absorb as much as they wanted, until this half of the purple energy crystals were completely used up. After the command was given, the undying world's undying world's undying world and Yixian's undying world immediately trembled violently. Following that, there was no other movement, as if it was dead, not moving at all. However, Yixian could clearly sense a crazy biological frequency that was faintly spreading out from within the undying world's undying world's undying world. This was clearly the world's insects that formed the undying world's undying world's undying world's undying world's undying world's undying world. And the rhythm of reproduction. There was no doubt that the transformation and evolution process this time would not end in a day or 2. The fact that these purple energy crystals had such a fatal attraction to the world's self-evolved insects was enough to show how powerful their effects were. In addition, there was such a huge amount of crystals. According to Yixian's conservative estimate, it would take at least several years for half of the purple crystals to be completely depleted, In that case, there was no need to keep watching. As this thought flashed through his mind, Yi Xian's consciousness immediately retreated from the undying world within his body. His eyes flashed and landed on the last 4 different colored energy crystals within the star core. Yi Xian already knew that these 4 types of energy crystals were coincidentally the core resources he needed to level up the 4 great starry sky battle armors in his hands. These 4 astral battlecruisers were Yi Xian's trump cards back then. Relying on them, Yi Xian could kill domain lords and even sector lords when he was in the universe realm. When he was in the sector lord realm, he could make the undying old monsters retreat in defeat and even kill them on the spot. But now, as his cultivation level increased to the undying world's undying world, the power of these 4 astral battlecruisers was far from enough. For this reason, Yi Xian had previously used the treasure-seeking mouse's bloodline in the fox ferret's body to obtain energy suitable for the evolution of the 4 astral battlecruisers' bloodline. Now, these 4 astral battlecruisers had all fallen into a deep slumber. When they woke up, they would definitely break out of their cocoons and transform into butterflies. However, the evolution of the astral battlecruiser's life level was only software. As the hardware, if the astral battlecruisers did not undergo a corresponding upgrade, they would not be able to support the terrifying